Welcome, villagers, to the village hidden in the stories. I'm your guide, All Kage, the creator and author behind all the what-if stories you see on this channel, powered by your amazing suggestions. Every story you hear is written, edited, and produced by me, so if you're ever wondering who's behind the magic, it's me. I hope you enjoy today's video. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon to stay updated, like the video, and don't forget to drop your what-if ideas and questions in the comments. Today's story is What If Naruto Was the Fox Sage of the Owl House Part 4. Not gonna spoil anything, but just let me know how you feel about the continuation of Naruto and Ida's mother and older son dynamic. Now, without further ado, let's jump into this what if. Part 4, Pain Traps Protectors. Amity's room was dimly lit, illuminated only by the soft glow of a few magical lights resting along her shelves. The shadows were gentle rather than oppressive, leaving the room feeling warm and lived in despite the late hour. Amity lay comfortably across her bed, one arm tucked beneath her head. Resting on her stomach was Naruto. Or rather, a much smaller version of Naruto. The fox had curled himself into a loose ball, his tails lazily draped across the blankets as the two continued a conversation that had apparently been going on for some time. And to think the great Crimson Terror is losing to the once prodigy Blight, Amity teased. Naruto's ear flicked. I may have lost our last match, but that doesn't mean much when our sparring wins are tied. Amity laughed, I guess you're right. Her grin widened. Doesn't mean I'm not stronger than you. Naruto rolled his eyes. You may have more magical power, but I have all the physical strength, speed, and durability to match you. True. Amity nodded thoughtfully. I guess we won't really know until we break the tie. Naruto gave a subtle nod. Then both fell silent. A calm silence. The kind that had become natural between them. Comfortable. Easy. Neither feeling pressured to fill the space. After a moment, Amity broke it. The teasing confidence from before softened into something warmer. You know, I never got to thank you for getting my job back. Naruto's ears twitched slightly. Luz told me how much trouble you both went through to convince Malphas. Naruto didn't respond immediately. The pause only made Amity's smile deepen. You don't have to say anything, she said quietly. I just wanted you to know I'm thankful. Another moment passed. Then Naruto turned his head toward her. Don't get all mushy on me, his tone was light. It was important to you, so we fixed it. His eyes met hers. You already know I care a lot about you. The words left him before he could stop them. Both froze. Amity's face immediately began turning red. Naruto realized what had happened a second too late. For a brief moment neither of them looked away. Green eyes met blue. The room suddenly felt much quieter than before. Then, a cloud of smoke appeared. When it cleared, Naruto was no longer resting on her stomach. Instead he sat on the far corner of the bed. Much farther away than before. Anyway. He quickly turned his face away. Hiding it. Hiding whatever expression was currently there. I should probably head out. His tails flicked nervously behind him. Ida and Principal Bump are planning something for Hexside tomorrow. A pause. I'd rather not be late. Another pause. I'm not trying to get nagged to death. The excuse sounded weak even to him. Before Amity could respond, another cloud of smoke filled the room. And Naruto was gone. Leaving only a few drifting wisps behind. Silence settled over the room once more. Amity stared at the empty spot where he had been. Confused. The entire conversation had felt normal. Comfortable. Then suddenly he had pulled away. Not physically at first. Emotionally. Like he'd realized something and immediately retreated from it. Her gaze drifted toward the spot where he had been lying only moments ago. then to the corner where he had moved, and finally to the empty air he'd vanished from. The more she thought about it, the less his explanation made sense. No. That hadn't been the real reason he left. It had sounded more like an excuse than anything else. Amity frowned slightly. For some reason, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Morning arrived quietly over Heckside. Golden sunlight spilled across the school grounds, chasing away the last traces of dawn. The Grudgeby field sat empty and still beneath the growing light, its stone floor marked with familiar blue and white paint worn smooth by countless games and training matches. Near the center of the field stood something far more unusual. A small dome-shaped shelter woven from thick sticks, branches, and carefully layered leaves. It looked almost like an oversized bird's nest built by a very determined architect. A low fence of intertwined branches surrounded it, creating a safe enclosure large enough for dozens of tiny creatures to live comfortably inside. Today, it housed something far more precious. Students from Luz's class stood gathered around the enclosure, talking quietly amongst themselves while curious eyes remained fixed on the little wooden shelter. Everyone knew today was important. For young witches, there were few milestones more significant than meeting a palisman. A lifelong companion. A partner. A reflection of who they were and who they hoped to become. The murmuring crowd quieted as three familiar figures approached. Principal Bump led the way. Beside him walked Ida Clawthorne with all the confidence of someone who had absolutely not been invited to organize school activities and had done it anyway. Perched lazily atop her shoulder sat Naruto in his small fox form, orange tail hanging over her back while half-lidded blue eyes surveyed the crowd with mild boredom. On Ida's opposite shoulder rested Albert. Unlike Naruto, Albert looked thrilled to be there. Principal Bump stopped beside the nest while Ida positioned herself nearby. The owl lady wore a grin. Bump wore something closer to pride. Naruto simply looked like he wanted a nap. Good tidings on this momentous day, Principal Bump announced. The gathered students straightened immediately. You're all about to receive your witches' staffs and, more importantly, meet your palisman. His voice carried easily across the field. This is a crucial step in your magical development. Palismen are lifelong partners. They can be both your good friends and a powerful tool, housing their own magical power to match your own. Bump snapped his fingers. The devil-shaped mask resting atop his head blinked. Not Bump. The mask itself. Several students jumped. The mask suddenly leapt free, transforming midair into a small devil-like creature that chirped proudly before reshaping itself into a wooden staff. Complete with red devil palisman on top. Bump caught it in one smooth motion. As the mask disappeared, long black hair spilled down around his shoulders. For the first time, his age became visible. Wrinkles lined his face. A scar crossed his closed left eye. Yet somehow he looked even more distinguished because of it. In my case, Bump said with a small smile, Fruin here helps me see. Several students stared in fascination. Ida stepped forward. Now traditionally, young witches carve their staffs from the branch of an old palistrum tree. But sadly, Bump continued, palistrum trees are becoming more rare. And those that remain are guarded covetously. That's why I've teamed up with Bumpy Poo. Never call me that. Ida ignored him. To bring you. Ida spread her arms dramatically. Before she could finish, a massive shadow swept across the field. Several students looked upward. A gigantic bat descended from the sky. Tan fur. Long black hair. Massive wings. The face of a woman. The body of a beast. The Bat Queen landed gracefully beside the nest. The ground shook beneath her weight. Palisman Adoption Day, she declared proudly. With guard dog Naruto overseeing, of course, Ida added. Naruto's ear flicked once. That was the entirety of his reaction. The Bat Queen smiled. A small door hidden within the woven shelter slowly opened. Dozens of tiny palismen emerged. Birds. Cats. Lizards. Foxes. Snakes. Creatures of every shape imaginable. The students collectively gasped. Some pointed excitedly. Others immediately fell in love. These little ones have not had homes in many years, the Bat Queen explained. They want to feel a connection. Her eyes swept across the gathered students. Kneel and state your deepest wish. Your like-minded partner will find you. A groan immediately came from Boscha. The three-eyed girl crossed her arms. I want my own palisman. Not some trashy hand-me-down. Willow immediately shoved past her. Your loss. She knelt before the nest without hesitation. I want to be strong and wise to protect everyone I love. Her smile sharpened slightly. And if anyone gets in my way, they'll feel the sting of defeat. The Bat Queen chuckled. Tender yet tenacious. A small bee-like creature flew from the shelter. Clover gives her support. The little palisman circled Willow excitedly before transforming into a yellow wooden staff. Willow's eyes widened. Oh my gosh! She immediately hugged it. I'm gonna take such good care of you. The class laughed. Willow practically skipped away. Gus immediately stepped forward. My dad wants me to become a master illusionist, but that's easy. A few students rolled their eyes. So instead I'll become an ambassador to the human realm and re-establish contact with the giraffes. The Bat Queen blinked. Then nodded. I believe Marcostomo will help you on this journey. A blue chameleon crawled onto Gus's shoulder. Moments later it transformed into a staff. Gus looked like he might explode from excitement. One by one students stepped forward. Dreams were shared. Wishes were spoken aloud. And little by little the abandoned palisman found new partners. The atmosphere grew lighter with every match. Hopeful. Exciting. Special. Eventually only one student remained. Luz stepped forward. Her hands clasped together nervously. She knelt before the nest. Took a breath. And smiled. I want to be a witch. Silence. Nothing happened. The smile on Luz's face faltered slightly. A second passed. Then another. No palisman emerged. Luz laughed nervously. Does it take a little longer because I'm human? The Bat Queen slowly shook her head. Palisman bond through emotion. Her expression softened. I do not sense any conviction from you. Luz blinked. That's not right. She laughed again. A little weaker this time. I'm chock full of conviction. Why wouldn't I be? Perhaps specificity would help, Principal Bump offered. There are many kinds of witches. He folded his hands behind his back. What do you hope to accomplish with your magic? Luz opened her mouth. Then hesitated. Oh. Her confidence immediately wavered. She rubbed the back of her neck. I want to do a lot of things. Would you still train to be a witch in the human realm? Gus asked. Can you even do magic there? Boscha added. Luz froze. The questions hit harder than expected. Her smile slowly faded. Her eyes drifted toward the ground. I know I want to learn magic. A pause. I know I want to be a witch. Another pause. But. She swallowed. I don't actually know what kind. The excitement surrounding the field slowly faded. Nobody mocked her. Nobody laughed. But the answer remained. No palisman approached. No staff appeared. The Bat Queen watched sadly. Principal Bump remained silent. Even Ida's smile had softened. And high on Ida's shoulder, Naruto quietly watched Luz. For once, she looked completely unsure of where she was going. A feeling she almost never allowed herself to show. Not long afterward, Palisman Adoption Day came to an end. Students left carrying their new partners. New staffs. New dreams. Luz walked away empty-handed. The day at Hexside ended quickly, everyone heading home excitedly with their new staffs and partners. However, when Luz returned to the Owl House, she didn't speak to Ida. She didn't speak to Naruto. Instead, she disappeared into her room, choosing solitude over company and keeping away from everyone entirely. After a while, Naruto found himself standing in front of Luz's door. Waiting. Wondering if she would come out on her own. Wondering if he should talk to her. Eventually, he decided enough time had passed. Quietly pushing the door open, he stepped inside. The room looked much the same as always. A sleeping bag sprawled across the floor. Books and scraps of paper scattered around. Various magical items either collected by Luz or abandoned there by Ida over the months. Luz herself sat in front of a medium-sized glass tank, no longer in her Hexside's uniform. Inside the tank was the Echo Mouse from the library resting quietly. Luz's face was practically pressed against the glass. She looked distracted by it. Almost absorbed. But Naruto could still sense it. The same nervousness. The same uncertainty. The same feeling she'd carried away from Palisman Adoption Day. He paused. Wondering what to say. Then, lazily, he spoke. "You still in here moping?" Luz immediately turned toward the open door, watching as Naruto slowly padded into the room. After a moment, she smiled softly before leaning away from the tank. "Maybe just a little bit," she sighed. Naruto settled beside her. Silence stretched between them for a while. Eventually Luz frowned. "I thought maybe since I didn't get a Palisman, I could at least try getting the Echo Mouse to show me some more of Philip's book." "No luck?" Naruto asked. She shook her head. Naruto's frown softened. "Have you tried not smudging your face against the glass like you do whenever you see a cute animal?" Luz let out a laugh. Soft. Warm. Less nervous than she'd been earlier. More like herself. When she finished, she looked over at him, her smile turning teasing. "You know I can't resist a cute animal." Luz laid back against the floor again, somehow looking completely comfortable despite the hard wood beneath her. Naruto didn't answer. Instead, he stretched out on his stomach and stared toward the ceiling. Another silence settled between them. Only this one lasted longer than the first. And somehow felt warmer. Comfortable. Familiar. Close. It lasted for a while. Until it didn't. Slowly, the mood began shifting. The warmth faded. Not into coldness, just uncertainty. The same feelings from earlier slowly filling the room again. The sensation felt heavy. Slumped, unsure. Like the room itself was 2 steps away from giving up. And all of it came from Luz. The smile she wore moments ago slowly faded. Her eyes drifted out of focus. Then she broke the silence. "I stayed here because I wanted to learn magic." Naruto glanced toward her. The look on her face made him frown. "I wanted to be a witch like Ida and Azura." "But what does that even mean?" She laughed again. Louder than before. Exaggerated. Almost defeated. "Of course I didn't have this figured out. I know everything I want to do until it includes my dream of becoming a witch." Her smile weakened. "I wouldn't want to be my Palisman either." Silence followed. Then Luz spoke again. Quieter this time. Directed at him. "Do you know what you want?" She paused before turning toward him. "For the future, I mean." Luz rolled back onto her back and stared up at the ceiling. She didn't wait for an answer. Everything's moving forward, and I thought I had the answers. Her voice grew smaller. But I don't. Naruto didn't respond. Didn't think he could. His life had always been shaped by survival. Responsibility. Protecting the people he cared about. And lately? He'd been trying very hard not to think about the future at all. Especially while he was around her. Neither of them noticed Ida and King quietly peeking into the room before silently closing the door again. Luz turned toward Naruto. Noticing his silence. Instead of pressing him for an answer, she simply smiled. Then reached over and started petting him. Naruto immediately leaned into the touch. Instinctively. Comfortably. It was familiar. Safe. The kind of comfort he'd grown used to. Then he remembered. His body stiffened. The feeling he'd been trying to ignore surfaced again. Immediately he turned away. The movement surprised Luz. But before either of them could address it, something red hopped free from Luz's bag. A small condor-shaped talisman landed on the floor. Luz froze. Her eyes widened. It's a talisman. She carefully stood and approached it, holding out a hand. Did you come here for me? The bird stared at her. Then immediately hopped past her. Exploring the room instead. Luz deadpanned. No, a beat. Of course not. Behind her, Naruto quietly let out a breath. Part relief. Part something else. It's fine, he said, standing up. I'll take him back to the nest at Hexside. His tail flicked. I need to stretch my paws a bit. Luz turned toward him, raising an eyebrow. Really? She narrowed her eyes. That doesn't sound like something you'd do. Naruto shrugged. I'm feeling helpful today. Then he added. Besides, if I don't do it, you will. His expression softened slightly. And I'd rather not have you wandering around outside with this much on your plate. Before Luz could argue, Naruto walked over, flipped the confused bird onto his back, and gently scooped him up. Then he headed for the door. I'll be back. He paused. If you still need to talk, don't hesitate to ask. Before Luz could respond, a small puff of smoke filled the doorway. And Naruto was gone. Luz remained where she stood. Partly confused. Partly thoughtful. Because it almost seemed like Naruto had pulled away before the talisman revealed itself. Like he'd already decided to leave. The thought lingered for a moment. Then she shook her head. It was probably nothing. Naruto was Naruto. And helping random creatures was exactly the sort of thing he'd do. At least, that's what she told herself. Not long after Naruto left, night began to fall. The trees grew still. The air turned colder. And the sky slowly filled with dim, twinkling lights. For the first time all day, Naruto let out a quiet sigh of relief. He landed at Hexside's Grudgeby field in his human form, boots settling against the stone as the darkness and silence finally allowed him to breathe. The talisman had already been returned to the nest it came from, the same nest the Bat Queen had left overnight for the other classes to receive their partners in the morning. With that done, Naruto decided to stay. He wandered the empty field for a while before finding a place to sit. Letting himself relax. Letting the tension from earlier slip away. Luz's conversation drifted from the front of his mind. Not because he didn't care. But because he wasn't actively fighting himself anymore. And that realization alone made him pause. His thoughts drifted back to Luz. Bright. Cheerful. Energetic. Then to Amity. Rare. Soft. Cool. Both smiles hard-earned. Both worth far more than the effort it took to see them. It made him remember how things used to be. How comfortable everything had felt. How easy it had been to simply exist around them. How calm. How open. The way he still sometimes wanted things to be. Before he remembered. Before he caught himself. Naruto closed his eyes. Relief was temporary. It always was. A second passed. Then another. A minute slipped by before frustration finally won. Naruto pushed himself up from the stone. This was supposed to be easy. The words escaped louder than intended. His jaw tightened. He glared upward, almost wishing the night sky could glare back. This was supposed to be easy. The thought echoed through his head. He was supposed to stop getting so close. Stop leaning on them. Stop letting himself forget. For Amity. For Luz. Yet he kept slipping. Kept letting things feel normal. Kept letting himself relax around them. Kept forgetting what he was trying to do. What he was trying to protect. He needed more backbone than this. Needed to remember. Needed to try harder. Amity deserved to be happy. Luz deserved to be happy, and all he had to do was take one step back. Not leave them. Not disappear. Not return to Konoha. Just one step. One small step. And somehow he couldn't even manage that. But he needed to. Wanted to. Because he knew they could be happy if he didn't interfere. That was why he was trying so hard. So why did it feel like, before Naruto could finish the thought, something cut through the night? A distant mechanical hum. His ears twitched. The sound grew louder. Propellers. Naruto's head snapped toward the Grudgebye field. Toward the Palisman nest. His eyes widened slightly. The entire structure was rising into the air. A large Emperor's Coven airship hovered above it, thick ropes and metal hooks wrapped around the nest as it slowly lifted from the ground. The vessel looked like a floating boat attached to a massive balloon, propellers spinning along its sides as it climbed higher into the night sky. Naruto stared for half a second. Then sighed. Of course. One thing after another. The moment he finally tried to sit down and think, something exploded. Got kidnapped, or tried to end the world. 3 fox tails erupted from his back. They whipped outward like living limbs. Naruto crouched, then launched. The stone beneath him cracked. Wind exploded around him as the tails helped propel him upward. The airship was already gaining altitude. Higher. Higher. But Naruto closed the distance rapidly. Just before the nest rose beyond reach, one tail wrapped around a branch protruding from the structure. The other 2 latched on moments later. His body swung violently beneath it. For a moment he dangled dozens of feet above the ground. Then he began climbing. The wind grew colder the higher they rose. His tails dug into the wooden structure while he pulled himself upward. Eventually he reached the small door built into the side of the nest. Naruto cracked it open just enough to peek inside. Darkness greeted him. But darkness rarely meant much to Fox eyes. He immediately spotted them. Dozens of palismen. Huddled together. Scared. Confused. Tiny bodies pressed against one another while worried chatter echoed through the nest. Naruto's expression hardened. You all okay in here? Several heads turned toward him, a few recognized him. The nervous chatter eased slightly. Not gone. But better. Naruto nodded once. Good. He shut the door carefully. Then his tails moved again. Pulling him higher. This time toward the airship itself. The moment he climbed over the edge, his mood immediately worsened. Golden Guard. Standing at the controls. Flying the ship. Naruto felt irritation spike instantly. Part of him wanted to blast him off the vessel with fire. Another part wanted to bury him beneath roots. Unfortunately, he'd already burned through both of those seal slots earlier. That left one option. Ice. A seal on his arm flashed. An icy blue marking. Cold exploded across his left arm. Frost crawled over skin and cloth alike before rapidly forming a massive claw of jagged ice. Naruto launched himself forward. The airship rocked beneath the force. The distance vanished instantly. The claw came down. Golden Guard moved at the last second. The attack missed him completely. Instead, Naruto's arm punched directly through the control console. Wood splintered. Metal bent. Ice scattered everywhere. The controls sparked violently. Golden Guard blinked. Then looked at the ruined controls. Then at Naruto. "Are you always this silent when you fight, Fox Boy?" Naruto ripped his arm free. Wood fragments scattered across the deck. In friendly spars, I like getting into people's heads. The ice claw expanded. Sharp. Dangerous. His eyes narrowed. People like you don't get that privilege. He attacked again. A wide sweeping strike. Golden Guard ducked beneath it. The ice passed inches above his head. Golden Guard flicked his wrist. Golden seal markings shot across the deck. Naruto reacted immediately. The ice on his arm melted. Water splashed across the wood, then froze. The seals became trapped beneath a sheet of ice. Naruto spun, a kick followed. Fast, powerful. Golden Guard barely avoided it by jumping backward toward the front of the vessel. Again nothing landed. Naruto stopped, turned sharply. Golden Guard stood near the bow now. Still calm, still composed, still annoying. "Don't be so brutish." Naruto looked ready to hit him again. Golden Guard gestured toward the damaged controls. "You've already done enough damage to the airship." His voice remained frustratingly casual. "Do any more and we'll all be plummeting out of the sky." He glanced toward the nest. "And I doubt you or the palisman survive a fall like that." Naruto's jaw tightened. Because he was right. He hated that. But he was right. The fox forced himself to calm down. At least slightly. Golden Guard visibly relaxed. "Good." He adjusted his grip on the railing. "Now let's," something roared, both boys froze. A massive shadow swept across the moon. The next second a giant beast burst from the clouds. Green scales. Massive wings shaped like enormous webbed hands. A long tail. Sharp predatory eyes. Its head looked almost draconic. Except its mouth consisted of two gigantic clawed hands snapping together. The creature slammed directly into the balloon. In one long shredding sound, claws tore through fabric. The entire airship lurched violently. Everything shook. Golden Guard's head smashed against the side railing. The impact knocked him completely off balance. Naruto lost his footing at the same time. The world tilted. The nest swung wildly beneath them. Then one of the support hooks snapped. The nest detached. Naruto's eyes widened. For one horrible moment, everything started falling. Golden Guard. Naruto. And the entire nest full of terrified palismen. The world became wind. Cold. Violent. Loud enough that thought almost disappeared beneath it. Almost. Naruto adjusted immediately. Years of being thrown through forests, blasted off cliffs, and generally surviving things that should have killed him had made falling surprisingly familiar. His body twisted. Eyes scanning. Assessing. Golden Guard was falling roughly 30 feet away. Not moving, not reacting, most likely unconscious. Naruto clicked his tongue. Then he spotted the nest. It had separated completely from the airship, and it was dropping fast. Far faster than either of them. The weight, the shape, the drag. It was going to hit something. Hard. And there were still palismen inside. Seriously? Orange fur erupted across both arms. His limbs stretched unnaturally. Fox-like. But longer, larger. One arm shot toward Golden Guard. The other toward the nest. Both extended impossibly far. One hand caught white fabric. The other slammed against woven branches. The sudden weight nearly ripped his shoulders out of their sockets. Pain shot through both arms. The three of them dropped together. For a second all Naruto could do was grit his teeth and hold on. Then instinct took over. Assess. Adapt. Survive. His eyes moved downward. Trees. An entire sea of them. Dark green stretching across the island. A forest. Dense. Old. Familiar. Recognition came a second later. Near Latisa. Far from Bones Burrow. Far from the Owl House. Far from Luz. Far from Amity. The thought slipped through before he could stop it. Naruto immediately shoved it away. Not now. Definitely not now. He had bigger problems. At least they hadn't been taken off island. Small victories. Naruto angled himself downward. If they were falling anyway, he might as well decide where. He dove, the wind became stronger. Violent enough to sting. His jacket snapped behind him. The nest shook. Golden Guard swung wildly from his extended arm. And then the door burst open. Naruto's eyes widened. No, 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 palismen started falling. One. Then another. Then another. Tiny bodies thrown into open sky. Panicked chirps filled the air. Naruto felt his stomach drop. The nest had been one problem, this was 20. 30. Maybe more. His tails exploded outward. Trying to catch them, one. Missed. Another. Missed. A third. Missed. The palismen scattered in every direction. The forest below seemed determined to swallow them whole. Naruto's frustration spiked immediately. Not anger. Not yet. Just that familiar feeling that had been following him for weeks. The feeling that every time he solved one problem another three appeared. His tails lashed again. This time they caught something. Red feathers. The condor. The strange palisman landed directly on his shoulder. It looked around frantically. The others were already disappearing into the forest canopy. Too many. Way too many. Naruto cursed. The words vanished into the wind. For a second he considered chasing them. Then immediately abandoned the idea. One mistake now and everybody hit the ground. Including the unconscious idiot dangling from his arm. Priorities. The trees rushed upward. Closer. 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 Naruto focused. The rest would have to wait. Just like everything else lately. Just one more thing to deal with later. One more thing he couldn't fix right now. Naruto's tails exploded outward. They wrapped around trunks. Branches, roots. Anything solid enough to survive the force. The sudden resistance nearly ripped him apart. The forest answered with a chorus of snapping wood. Entire branches shattered as their descent slowed. The nest slammed into the upper canopy first. A massive branch bent under the impact before catching it. The structure rocked violently, but held. Naruto released it immediately. One problem solved. Now the other. He twisted his body. Golden Guard still hung from his arm. Completely limp. You're lucky I'm not letting you splatter. The unconscious which failed to appreciate the sentiment. Naruto angled downward. His tails caught another branch. Then another. Then another. Each impact bled away more momentum. Leaves exploded around them. Broken twigs scattered through the air. Then finally, Naruto landed hard enough to leave cracks in the soil beneath his boots. Golden Guard hit the ground beside him, rolling several feet before coming to a stop. Silence followed. Not complete silence. The forest was never truly quiet: crickets, wind, distant birds, the creaking of branches overhead. But compared to falling through the sky, it felt silent. Naruto stood there for a moment. Breathing. Making sure everything still worked. Arms. Legs. Shoulders. Tail. Nothing broken. Good enough. A soft peck hit his shoulder. Naruto looked sideways. The red condor stared back at him, another peck. Then another. Naruto sighed. Yeah. The bird chirped. I know. Another chirp. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck. His gaze drifted upward. The nest was visible through the branches. Still lodged where it landed. That was the good news. The bad news, he looked around the forest. No sign of the others. Not a single one. The condor followed his gaze. Its feathers drooped slightly. Naruto frowned. Hey. The bird looked at him. We'll find them. The condor chirped. Naruto wasn't sure whether it believed him. Honestly, he wasn't sure if he believed himself. There were dozens, maybe more. Scattered across an entire forest. Some might be hurt, some might be hiding, some might already be halfway across the island by now. Naruto exhaled slowly. One thing at a time. That had always been the rule. The rule was just getting harder to follow lately. His eyes drifted toward Golden Guard. Still unconscious. Still annoying. Still somehow creating problems even while asleep. Naruto walked over. Nudged him with a boot. Nothing. Nudged him again. Still nothing. Wonderful. The condor hopped onto Golden Guard's chest, before it began pecking at him. Still not getting a response. Naruto was about to pull the bird away when the ground shook. Both Naruto and the condor froze. Another impact followed. Closer. Much closer. Naruto's ears flattened instantly. The condor took flight. Naruto grabbed Golden Guard by the collar. Another impact. The surrounding trees trembled. Leaves rained down from above. Naruto didn't waste another second. He dragged Golden Guard behind the nearest tree. The condor followed. Then they waited. Watching. Listening. The impact stopped. For several seconds nothing happened. Then something huge moved between the trees. A massive green shape. Scales. Claws. Wing-like hands. Naruto immediately recognized it. The beast. The same one that attacked the airship. Only now that it wasn't trying to kill him. He got a better look. Which somehow made it uglier. Naruto carefully leaned around the trunk. Then blinked. You've got to be kidding me. A tiny figure sat atop a saddle mounted between the creature's shoulders. Red face. Dark cloak. Permanent attitude problem. Kikimora. Naruto immediately pinched the bridge of his nose. The condor chirped quietly. I know. Another chirp. I know. A third chirp. This day sucks. The beast lowered its massive head. Its strange hand-like jaws opened and closed. Sniffing. Searching. The creature slowly turned. One direction. Then another. Its nostrils flared. Naruto immediately pulled himself further behind the tree. Not that he thought the thing could smell him. But he wasn't interested in testing that theory. The condor pressed itself against his shoulder. Golden Guard remained unconscious. Lucky him. The beast sniffed again. Then shook its head. Kikimura's eye immediately twitched. What do you mean no? The beast rumbled quietly. Another shake. Kikimura stood on the saddle. No? Her voice echoed through the forest. Several nearby birds immediately fled. Naruto winced. Subtle as always. The beast shrank slightly beneath her glare. Kikimura pointed dramatically into the trees. We are not leaving until that brat is dead. The beast let out an uncertain growl. Kikimura stomped her foot. I don't care if you lost the scent. She pointed again. Find him. Another uncertain growl. The beast lowered itself further. Naruto almost felt bad for it. Almost. Kikimura folded her arms. Muttering at first. Then louder. The kind of louder people used when they secretly wanted someone to hear them. I tolerated him replacing bellows publicly. Naruto's ears twitched. Interesting. I tolerated everyone acting like he mattered. The beast remained silent. Kikimura continued pacing atop the saddle. But somehow everything became worse. She threw her hands into the air. The coven heads barely acknowledge me. The Emperor's coven barely listens to me. And now that little mask-wearing brat treats me like a servant. The beast looked away. Probably the safest choice. Kikimura's face twisted. I am Kikimura. She jabbed a thumb into her chest. I should be advising the throne. I should be directing the covens. I should be the one everyone answers to. Naruto slowly looked toward Golden Guard. Still unconscious. Still somehow causing problems. Kikimura continued. Instead. Her voice dropped. Dangerously quiet. Everyone keeps looking at him. The beast made a nervous noise. Kikimura rounded on it immediately. Do you know how many years I've served? The beast wisely remained silent. Of course you don't. She pointed toward the sky. Bellows is gone. The words hung strangely in the air. For a brief moment she almost sounded uncertain. Then her expression hardened again. And what was supposed to be my opportunity? Her lip curled. Turned into his. Naruto frowned slightly. That sounded less like ambition. And more like jealousy. A lot more jealousy. Kikimura finally stopped pacing. A grin slowly spread across her face. Not for long. The beast shifted nervously. Kikimura climbed back into the saddle. Golden Guard is dead. She sounded like she was trying to convince herself. He has to be. The grin widened. And when he is. Her fingers tightened around the reins. I'll finally take what should have been mine. The forest fell quiet. For a moment nobody moved. Then Kikimura slapped the side of the beast's neck. Move. The creature immediately obeyed. Its massive body turned. Branches cracked beneath its weight. A few moments later both disappeared deeper into the forest. The sounds gradually faded. Then vanished entirely. Silence returned. Naruto waited. Just to be safe. Then he finally exhaled. The condor immediately pecked him. Naruto groaned. Yeah. The bird chirped. I heard it too. Another chirp. No, I don't know if she's always been that dramatic. The condor chirped again. Naruto glanced toward Golden Guard. Then back toward the direction Kikimora had gone. Then back to Golden Guard. A long pause followed. You know? He pointed at the unconscious witch. I was already having a bad day. The condor chirped. Naruto nodded. Exactly. He stared down at the unconscious Golden Guard. The more he thought about it, the less he liked every option available. Leave him here? Kikimora would eventually find him. Problem solved. Technically. Unfortunately, Naruto wasn't the kind of person who could actually walk away afterward. Tie him up? That only delayed the problem. Drag him all the way back to Bonesboro? Absolutely not. He already had enough explaining to do in life. The red condor hopped from Naruto's shoulder, landing directly on Golden Guard's chest. Peck. No reaction. Peck. Still nothing. Naruto narrowed his eyes. The bird pecked him instead. Stop that. Peck. No, peck. The bird stared. Naruto stared back. The contest lasted several seconds. The condor won. Naruto sighed. This is a terrible idea. The bird chirped. An absolutely terrible idea. Another chirp. Naruto rubbed his face. Then looked back down. Without the mask. Without the armor. Without all the Emperor's Coven nonsense. Golden Guard looked younger. Not harmless. Definitely not harmless. But younger. Closer to Naruto's age than he expected. Platinum blonde hair. Sharp features. A scar running from his chin up toward his nose. And somehow still annoyingly good-looking. Naruto frowned. That's irritating. The condor tilted its head. Naruto pointed. He's too handsome. The bird chirped. Naruto immediately regretted saying that aloud. A fact made significantly funnier by the reality that more than two very specific witches already considered Naruto's own human form annoyingly handsome. The condor sounded judgmental. Naruto ignored it. Instead he focused on the actual problem. Kikimora. The scattered palisman. The forest. Golden Guard. In roughly that order. The sooner he got moving, the better. The condor pecked Golden Guard again. Naruto paused. Then groaned. No, the bird chirped. No, another chirp. No, a third chirp. Naruto closed his eyes. Then sighed heavily. Fine. The seal on his arm flashed. Cold surged outward. Ice raced across Golden Guard's body. Legs. Torso. Arms. Until only his head remained exposed. The last of Naruto's stored ice vanished completely. And just like that, one of his seal slots was empty. Naruto immediately regretted it. Definitely a terrible idea. The condor chirped approvingly. Naruto ignored it. Then walked over. Raised a hand. And slapped Golden Guard across the face. Hard. Golden Guard's eyes snapped open. His body jerked violently. What th? Naruto immediately cut him off. Quiet. Golden Guard froze. Then glared. Naruto pointed toward the forest. Kikimora wants you dead. The glare didn't change. Naruto continued. You lost the palisman. Nothing. Your subordinate is actively trying to murder you. Still nothing. And we're stranded in the middle of nowhere. Golden Guard slowly looked around. Then down. Then finally noticed the ice. A dangerous silence followed. Naruto waited. Golden Guard stared. The air felt heavier. Then finally, let me see if I've understood this correctly. His voice was calm. Too calm. Naruto immediately knew this wasn't going well. You attacked me. Naruto opened his mouth. Golden Guard continued. You destroyed my ship. Technically, you ignored my warning. Naruto stopped talking. You interfered with my mission. Golden Guard's eyes narrowed. And then you froze me. A pause. And now you're asking for my cooperation. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck. When you put it that way. Because that is exactly what happened. Yeah. Fair. Golden Guard suddenly smiled. Not a pleasant smile. The kind that usually preceded problems. Then his artificial staff appeared in his hand. Naruto's ears twitched. The staff slammed into the ground. Golden energy exploded outward. The ice shattered instantly. Naruto and the condor were blasted backward. Naruto rolled twice before planting a hand into the dirt and stopping himself. The condor crashed into a bush. A second later it angrily burst back out. Golden Guard calmly stepped from the shattered ice. Dusting frost from his sleeves. Adjusting his cloak. Acting as though he hadn't just been frozen solid moments ago. Naruto slowly stood. Fox ears appeared. 3 tails unfurled. The forest suddenly felt much smaller. Golden Guard didn't even look at him. Instead he studied the trees around them. The terrain. The direction of the wind. The broken branches. Calculating. Thinking. Naruto hated that look. It reminded him of people who always knew more than they should. Finally Golden Guard spoke. I may be disoriented. He glanced toward Naruto. But there is absolutely no chance I'm helping you. Naruto's expression flattened. The condor hopped onto his shoulder. Neither relaxed. Then Golden Guard suddenly paused. Something caught his eye. His gaze shifted deeper into the forest. Toward the direction Kikimora disappeared. Naruto frowned. What? Golden Guard didn't answer. Instead he vanished. A golden flash. Then another. Naruto blinked. Golden Guard reappeared nearly 50 feet away. Standing beside a bush. He bent down. Picked something up. And stared at it. For several seconds. Naruto couldn't make out what it was. Golden Guard turned it over. Recognition flickered across his face. The smallest crack in his composure. Then he disappeared again. Another golden flash. He reappeared directly in front of Naruto. Holding what looked like a whistle. One shaped suspiciously like a finger. Naruto frowned. What is that? Golden Guard ignored the question. His eyes moved from the whistle. To the forest. To Naruto. Thinking. Recalculating. Then finally, I'll help. Naruto blinked. What? The answer came so fast it almost gave him whiplash. You just said, I know. You said there was no chance. I know. Naruto stared. The condor stared. Golden Guard stared back. Unbothered. Completely serious. Naruto pointed at him. You can't just reverse directions like that. I just did. Why? Golden Guard tucked the whistle away. Because circumstances changed. That explained absolutely nothing. Naruto's eye twitched. The condor pecked his shoulder. Golden Guard looked toward the trees. The palismen are scattered. Naruto nodded cautiously. Kikimora is hunting us. Another nod. And neither of us benefits from handling both problems separately. Naruto narrowed his eyes. That wasn't the full answer. Not even close. Golden Guard knew something. The whistle proved that. But getting information out of him looked about as enjoyable as pulling teeth. Naruto sighed. Fine. Golden Guard nodded once. Naruto pointed deeper into the forest. We find the palisman first. Agreed. We avoid the hand dragon thing. A pause. Reasonable. We stop Kikimora. Golden Guard's eyes narrowed slightly. Agreed. Naruto pointed at him. And after that? Golden Guard raised an eyebrow. A faint grin tugged at Naruto's mouth. After that, we can go back to being a problem for each other. Golden Guard stared. Then turned and began walking. Which somehow felt like agreement. Naruto exhaled through his nose. The condor chirped. Golden Guard didn't look back. Try to keep up. Naruto blinked. Then immediately became annoyed. Hey. No response. Hey. Golden Guard continued walking. Naruto's ear flicked. The condor sounded suspiciously like it was laughing. The forest settled into an uneasy rhythm. Naruto moved through the canopy with practiced ease, fox ears flicking toward every distant sound. Behind him, Golden Guard followed. Not quite silently, but close. The red condor palisman bounced between them whenever it felt like it. Sometimes landing on Naruto's shoulder. Sometimes hopping onto Golden Guard's staff. Neither seemed particularly happy about it. The bird didn't care. It chirped happily either way. We should have found more by now, Naruto muttered. We've already found 6. 6 isn't all of them. Golden Guard glanced at him. Remarkable observation. Naruto's eye twitched. The condor chirped. Neither acknowledged that it sounded suspiciously amused. A few minutes later the bird suddenly took off. Red feathers flashed through the trees. Naruto and Golden Guard immediately stopped. The condor disappeared through a cluster of branches. Then came a frightened chirp. Naruto's expression sharpened. Golden Guard moved first. A golden flash carried him through the canopy. Naruto followed immediately behind. The source of the noise revealed itself quickly. A small rabbit-like palisman had become trapped between twisted roots at the base of a massive tree. The little creature was panicking. Struggling. Making the situation worse. Naruto dropped from the branches. Easy. The palisman only became more frightened. Golden Guard landed nearby. The rabbit immediately froze. Then somehow looked even more terrified. Naruto wasn't sure whether that was impressive or insulting. The little creature attempted to pull itself free again. Its leg slipped. A sharp cry escaped it. Naruto took a step forward. The palisman recoiled. Golden Guard watched quietly. Neither moved. Neither spoke. Then unexpectedly, Golden Guard crouched. Slowly. Carefully. Not the way Naruto expected. No arrogance. No commands. No manipulation. Just patience. His voice lowered slightly. It's all right. The palisman froze. Golden Guard extended one hand. Keeping his distance. Giving it room. It won't hurt much. Naruto blinked. The rabbit hesitated. Then slowly stopped struggling. Golden Guard reached forward. Carefully freed the trapped leg. And immediately backed away. Giving it space again. The little palisman blinked. Looked between both witches. Then hopped toward the condor. The condor chirped proudly. As though this had been its idea. Naruto looked at Golden Guard. Golden Guard stood. adjusted his glove, looked away. The moment disappeared. Like it never happened. Neither acknowledged it. Neither mentioned it. And somehow that made it feel more important. "Let's keep moving," Golden Guard said. Naruto stared for another second. Then nodded. "Yeah." The search continued. Hours seemed to pass in fragments. A lost bird hidden inside a hollow tree. A frightened fox palisman buried beneath leaves. A pair of squirrel palismen that refused to stop fighting each other. One by one they found them. Naruto's senses tracked faint traces of magic. Golden Guard followed signs others would never notice. Broken twigs. Disturbed bark. Tiny claw marks. Together they covered far more ground than either could have alone. Not friends. Not partners. Not even close. But teammates by circumstance. And unfortunately effective ones. Eventually the final palisman was recovered. The small creatures huddled together inside the nest once more. Safe. Tired. But safe. Naruto rested a hand against the woven branches. Relief settling over him. Golden Guard silently inspected the nest. Confirming every palisman was accounted for. The condor sat proudly atop the roof. As though it personally deserved credit. Naruto suspected it believed exactly that. By the time they finished, darkness had deepened across the forest. The air felt colder. Still. Waiting. Which made the next part easier. Naruto and Golden Guard perched together on a massive branch overlooking a clearing. The recovered nest hidden safely behind them. Neither spoke. Neither trusted the silence enough to relax. Far below, the forest stretched endlessly. And somewhere inside it, Kikimora was still searching. Naruto leaned forward slightly. Golden Guard remained motionless. Waiting. Watching. Listening. Both of them were focused on the exact same target. For now. Naruto broke the silence first. It was a chance he couldn't pass up. A chance to learn something, anything, about the boy sitting beside him. "You always this focused?" Golden Guard didn't look at him when he spoke. "I usually let myself relax around teammates." A brief pause. "You're an exception." Naruto's deadpanned. The response sounded suspiciously familiar. "So you do have a sense of humor," Naruto mocked lazily. Golden Guard didn't react, which somehow made it funnier. Naruto glanced sideways at him. Moonlight reflected faintly off the white cloak. The whole act still felt strange. Too practiced, too deliberate, like Golden Guard was trying very hard to be someone. "Then what's with the whole Golden Guard thing?" Naruto asked. "You look around my age," his eyes narrowed slightly. "You should be going to some magic school, running around, doing dumb stuff. A beat. Not emotionally manipulating people into destroying portal doors." Golden Guard finally looked at him. The glare was immediate. Cold. Sharp. "Do not speak to me as if we're friends, Fox," his voice lowered. "This truce is temporary." The red eyes hardened. "So be ready when Kikimora is dealt with." Naruto's smirk faded. Well, there went the easy approach. Still, he wasn't ready to give up. "It's just a question," he turned his attention back toward the clearing. "We aren't friends." A pause. "We're definitely not going to be friends." Another pause. "I'm just curious why someone so young puts their faith in a dead man." The atmosphere shifted instantly. Golden Guard's expression darkened. "Mind your tongue." Naruto didn't push, not immediately. Silence returned. The wind stirred the leaves overhead. A distant owl cried somewhere deeper in the forest. For a long moment neither spoke. Then unexpectedly, Golden Guard answered. Bellows helped the boiling aisles. His gaze remained fixed on the darkness below. He made it safer than it had ever been. His voice carried certainty. Not blind devotion, nor fanaticism. Certainty. I move forward in the plan he left behind. The day of unity will change the Isles for the better. His eyes narrowed slightly. You'll see. Naruto remained silent. Golden Guard continued, I don't want to be someone's enemy. The word sounded genuine. Which somehow made them worse. But wild witches continue to resist. His gaze shifted briefly toward Naruto, and you continue getting in the way. The day of unity is necessary. It will protect this world. His expression remained unchanged. I can't promise your human will be safe if she stands against it. Something sharp twisted inside Naruto's chest. Not fear. Anger. His fingers tightened against the bark. For a moment he almost responded, almost challenged him. Then he stopped. Because the worst part was obvious. Golden Guard believed every word he was saying. No hesitation, no doubt, no deception. He truly thought he was helping people. That made him far more dangerous than some power-hungry tyrant. Naruto slowly looked away. Deciding he didn't like that realization. Then with a loud tum, the branch beneath them shook. Both boys immediately rose. Another impact, closer. The forest ahead exploded with movement. There the beast was. Its strange hand-like jaws opening and closing while it sniffed the air. And still seated atop its head was Kikimora. Both Naruto and Golden Guard stepped backward along the branch instinctively. The red condor suddenly landed on Naruto's shoulder with a nervous chirp. Naruto barely noticed. His eyes were locked on the clearing below. The beast lifted its head. Sniffing. Searching. Trying to find them. Naruto slowly turned toward Golden Guard. Is Kikimora powerful at all? Golden Guard glanced toward the tiny demon. Then shook his head. No. Naruto looked back toward the creature, then toward Kikimora, then back toward the creature. His hand flashed, a slot on his leg ignited. Smoke burst outward. The massive cleaver appeared instantly. The blade slammed into the branch with a heavy thunk. Naruto rested one hand atop it, eyes narrowing dangerously. Then what we need to do is simple. Golden Guard looked toward him. Naruto pointed the blade toward the beast. I knock that thing off balance. Then toward Kikimora. You take care of her. He smirked. And then I pin the ugly thing down. Golden Guard studied the beast for a second. Then Naruto. You sure about that? Naruto's smirk sharpened. I've met a lot of demons. Still haven't found one that's stronger than me. A beat. Mostly. Golden Guard stared. Then nodded once. Good enough. Below them the beast lifted its head again. Sniffing. Searching, getting closer. Naruto's eyes narrowed once more. Golden Guard adjusted his grip on his staff. Neither said another word. Then both launched from the branch. The ambush had begun. They both leapt into action. The branch exploded beneath their feet. Golden Guard vanished first. One moment he stood beside Naruto. The next he was already dropping through the trees, cloak snapping behind him as he descended toward the clearing below. Naruto followed a heartbeat later. The beast spotted him immediately. Its strange hand-like jaws opened wide, claws flexing as its head snapped toward him. A low growl echoed through the forest. Kikimora looked up. Her eyes widened. Then narrowed into a furious glare. What is the fox boy doing here? Naruto groaned. Honestly offended. Why does every enemy I face insist on calling me that? Kikimora pointed at him furiously. You. Naruto waved lazily, "Hey redhead." He gave a cocky smirk. "You couldn't kill a fly even with a larger hand beast." Kikimora screeched. The beast reacted instantly. Massive legs dug into the earth, then it launched forward, the forest shook. Trees bent aside as the creature barreled toward Naruto like a living avalanche. The ground trembled beneath every step. Naruto readied his cleaver. The massive blade almost weightless in his hands. Instead of retreating, Naruto ran straight at the beast. The distance disappeared rapidly. The beast roared. Naruto lowered his stance, both hands tightening around the weapon. The creature was almost on top of him. Rushing at him before. Now. Naruto pivoted. The cleaver swung in a massive arc, not with the edge. With the thick, blunt spine. The strike connected with the creature's front legs. The impact sounded like a tree splitting apart. The beast's momentum betrayed it. Its front half lifted violently. Its balance vanished. The massive creature crashed sideways through the clearing. Trees exploded into splinters. Branches shattered. The beast rolled several times before finally skidding to a stop. Kikimora was launched from the saddle, she shrieked. Arms windmilling uselessly. Then a white blur intercepted her. Golden Guard. He appeared in midair. Caught her by the back of her robes. And landed lightly beside Naruto. Kikimora dangled from his grip. Furious, humiliated, still kicking. Naruto rested the cleaver against one shoulder. Calm look resting on his face. Guess I don't need to hold it down. He glanced toward Golden Guard. Good catch. The compliment was entirely wasted. Kikimora immediately started screaming. I'll have your heads for this. She pointed wildly between them. It's treason. She kicked her legs. Treason to attack a coven official. Golden Guard slowly lifted her higher, until they were eye level. His red eyes narrowed. Cold, sharp, dangerous. Then I wonder what it means, his voice became quieter. When you attack the acting emperor of the Boiling Isles, Kikimora froze. Completely. The realization hit all at once. Golden Guard's expression didn't change. But there was something deeply satisfying in the way he watched her panic. Don't worry. His voice remained calm. I'm sure your trial will be very fair. Kikimora looked horrified. The staff appeared in his hand. Golden symbols erupted outward. Seal after seal unfolded through the air. They wrapped around her body like chains. Across her arms. Around her legs, and across her mouth. Within seconds she resembled a tightly wrapped package of glowing restraints. The screaming stopped, only muffled protests remained. Golden Guard lowered her beside him. The clearing fell silent. The beast remained unconscious. Kikimora was restrained. The mission was effectively over. For several seconds neither boy moved. Neither spoke. Then Naruto broke the silence. Guess that's done with. He shifted the cleaver slightly. What now? Golden Guard immediately raised his staff. The movement was smooth. Automatic. Instinctive. Naruto sighed. Of course. The cleaver dropped into a ready position, his stance lowered. His gaze hardened. For a moment neither moved. Neither blinked. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Naruto exhaled slowly. You know, his grip tightened. Luz would have befriended you by now. A pause, then a smirk. But I'm perfectly happy with punching you in the face. Golden Guard stared. Naruto stared back, the tension tightened. One wrong movement, one twitch, one decision. And the fight would begin. Then, Golden Guard lowered his staff. Naruto blinked. The weapon disappeared. Golden Guard bent down, picked up Kikimora, and straightened. Naruto frowned immediately, confused. The fight had been coming. They both knew it. So why stop? Golden Guard looked toward him. The hostility remained. The distrust remained. But the decision had already been made. I'm not going to attack you. Naruto's confusion only deepened. Golden Guard adjusted his grip on Kikimora. We are both exhausted. Matter of fact. Simple. True. You stand between me and the palisman. You intend to protect them regardless of what I do. His eyes narrowed slightly. And I currently have a traitor to deal with. Kikimora made an angry muffled sound. Golden Guard ignored her. Capturing the palisman would only complicate that task. His gaze met Naruto's. So keep them. Naruto froze. Golden Guard continued. I will not pursue them. I will not attempt another capture. A brief pause. I'll complete my mission another way. Naruto searched for the trick. The manipulation, the hidden angle. But found nothing. Golden Guard sounded entirely serious. Which somehow made it stranger. Before Naruto could question him, golden symbols appeared beneath Golden Guard's feet. Golden Guard looked at him one final time. Expression unreadable. Then vanished. Along with Kikimora. A teleportation seal. The clearing became quiet again. Naruto remained standing for several seconds. Waiting, expecting something, anything. Nothing happened. The silence lingered. Then finally, his legs gave out. Naruto dropped onto one knee. The cleaver slammed into the dirt, supporting most of his weight. The red condor immediately landed beside him. Naruto weakly waved it away. I'm fine. I'm mostly fine. The bird clearly disagreed. Naruto laughed tiredly. Then rubbed his eyes. Now that everything had stopped, the exhaustion hit hard, the stolen nest, the fall, the scattered palisman, Kikimora, Golden Guard. The constant frustration. And underneath all of it, everything else. The thoughts he'd been trying not to think. The feelings he'd been trying not to feel. It all crashed into him at once. Leaving him physically, mentally, emotionally drained. For a while he simply sat there. Breathing. Listening to the forest. Trying to convince himself not to immediately pass out. At least the worst was over. Golden Guard was gone. And apparently wasn't planning some elaborate attack. Naruto didn't completely believe that. Not yet. Part of him was already wondering about the Day of Unity. About what exactly Golden Guard thought he was protecting. But those were tomorrow problems. Today's problems had already done enough damage. The condor pecked him again. Naruto chuckled, they're all safe now. The bird tilted its head. We can head back to Hexside. Naruto pushed himself upright. The cleaver vanished in smoke. And there you can finally find yourself a partner. The condor chirped. Naruto turned toward the direction he'd hidden the nest. But it's gonna be a long trip too. Something pressed against his side. Naruto paused. Reached into his jacket. Pulled out a folded note. And a familiar whistle. The finger whistle. Naruto unfolded the paper. The handwriting was neat. Precise. It read, "This whistle controls Kikimora's beast. You'll need it more than I will. Our truce is over. The next time we meet, we will be enemies again. Stay out of my way." Naruto stared at the note, then at the whistle, then back at the note. Confused, again. Golden Guard was dangerous, manipulative, loyal to the memory of Bellows. Probably insane. Yet somehow, he kept doing things that didn't fit neatly into any of those categories. Naruto folded the note, stuffed both items back into his pocket, then looked toward the unconscious beast nearby, already trying to figure out how he was supposed to ride that thing home. A loud chirp interrupted him. Naruto looked down. What? The condor chirped again. I'm kinda busy. More chirping. Naruto blinked. What? Another chirp. Naruto's eyes widened. No, the bird chirped confidently. You couldn't have already found a partner. The condor puffed its chest out. Me and Golden Guard were the only ones around you. Another chirp. Naruto slowly looked toward the place Golden Guard had vanished. Then back at the bird. Then back toward the empty space. Oh, don't tell me. The condor chirped. Naruto groaned loudly. I'm not letting you go with him. The bird chirped. He's dangerous. Chirp. The Bat Queen would have my head. Another chirp. Naruto pointed accusingly. No, the bird chirped. What do you mean no? Chirp. You can't just decide that. The bird chirped again. Naruto stared. The bird stared back. Several seconds passed. Naruto lost. Again. Fine. The word sounded annoyed. Fine. The condor immediately looked victorious. You can follow him. Naruto pointed. But stay at a distance. The bird chirped. He obviously needed the palisman for something. Chirp. He wouldn't hesitate to use you as a substitute. The condor ignored that entirely. Then launched into the air. Red feathers vanished between the trees. Naruto watched him go. Then buried his face in one hand. The Bat Queen is gonna kill me. Still. He didn't stop the bird. Instead he turned toward the unconscious beast. Cracked his neck. And prepared himself for what was shaping up to be a very long trip home. The Emperor's castle was quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. Not the comforting kind. The castle felt silent the way a graveyard felt silent. Heavy. Watching. The stone corridors stretched endlessly through darkness, lit only by scattered green flames burning inside iron braziers. Their sickly light crawled across the walls and floor, casting long shadows that seemed to move whenever nobody was looking directly at them. Golden Guard walked through those halls without hesitation. His white cloak drifted behind him. His boots echoed against stone. And hanging beneath one arm, Kikimora struggled uselessly. The golden restraints wrapped around her body glowed softly, keeping her arms pinned and her magic sealed. She pleaded for him to forgive her, to let her go. No response. Golden Guard continued walking. His expression remained hard. Unreadable. Kikimora's breathing quickened. She tried again. Still nothing, not even a glance. Kikimora felt panic beginning to claw at her chest. Because Golden Guard wasn't angry. He wasn't mocking her. He wasn't threatening her. He was simply carrying her somewhere. And somehow that terrified her more. The corridor eventually widened. The castle grew darker. The green torchlight became scarce. Then disappeared entirely. Golden Guard finally stopped. Kikimora looked up. Confused. Ahead of them stood only darkness. Nothing else. No throne. No guards. No doors. Just darkness. Golden Guard immediately lowered his head. And bowed. Emperor bellows. Kikimora froze. Her eye widened. Confusion hit first. Then disbelief. Then fear. Bellows was dead, everyone knew that, the Isles knew that, the Coven heads knew that, the Emperor's coven knew that. So who exactly, Golden Guard? The voice emerged from the darkness. Calm. Deep. Familiar. Kikimura's blood turned to ice. No, it couldn't be. Her eye shot toward the darkness. And then she saw them. Two glowing blue eyes. Watching from the shadows. Nothing else. Just the eyes. And somehow that was worse. Far worse. Kikimora felt her entire body begin shaking. Bellows. The name barely escaped her throat. Emperor Bellows. The blue eyes remained fixed on her. Then slowly shifted toward Golden Guard. Hello, Kikimora. Bellows sounded almost pleasant. Almost. I was not expecting any guests today. Kikimora wanted to run. Unfortunately, she was still tied up. Bellows looked between them. Or at least she assumed he did. It was impossible to tell. Only the eyes were visible. Sir. Golden Guard straightened. I've come to report on my latest mission. One shadowed hand emerged. Gesturing calmly. Continue. Golden Guard obeyed immediately. The mission began as planned. His voice remained composed. I located a nest of palisman created by the Bat Queen for a Hexside adoption ceremony. The blue eyes narrowed slightly. Golden Guard continued. However, the mission encountered complications. Kikimora attempted to interfere. Kikimora immediately twisted toward him. You liar, the seals tightened. Her words died instantly. Golden Guard didn't even acknowledge her. The fox boy also interfered. His expression darkened slightly. The situation escalated. Bellows remained silent. Waiting. Then finally, so you failed. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Kikimora nearly collapsed from relief. Yes. Good. Blame him. Punish him. Not her. Golden Guard raised a hand respectfully. No, sir. No hesitation. No fear. No mission involving the fox boy was ever going to proceed perfectly. Bellows remained silent. Listening. Golden Guard reached beneath his cloak. Then withdrew something. A small rabbit palisman. Bound carefully. Still alive. Still moving. Kikimora's eye widened. Golden Guard held it forward. While most of the palismen were lost. His gaze shifted toward Kikimora. The interference responsible for that loss came from her. Kikimora's stomach dropped. And despite those complications, Golden Guard continued. I still secured one. The rabbit chirped weakly. Bellows slowly stepped forward. The darkness moved with him. And for just a moment, Kikimora saw part of what hid beneath. Black sludge. Twisting. Crawling. Living. Something wet shifted beneath elegant robes. Something wrong. Something that should not have existed. Kikimora immediately looked away. Her breathing became uneven. Bellows accepted the rabbit. The small creature disappeared into the darkness. For several moments nobody spoke. Then Bellows nodded. Slowly. I suppose. His voice softened. One palisman will be enough. The tension eased. Slightly. Only slightly. Bellows' glowing eyes drifted toward Kikimora. The relief vanished immediately. And since Kikimora attempted to directly interfere with a mission I personally assigned. His voice lowered. Kikimora's entire body locked up. I suppose the failure belongs to her. Bellows stepped forward again. One slow step. Then another. Kikimora whimpered. Leave her with me, Golden Guard. Bellows' voice became calm once more. You are dismissed. Golden Guard bowed immediately. Yes, sir. Without hesitation he dropped Kikimora onto the floor. She hit the stone hard. The rabbit palisman vanished completely into Bellow's grasp. Then Golden Guard turned. And left. Not looking back. Not slowing down. Not helping her. The sound of his footsteps faded into the distance, leaving Kikimora alone. With Bellows. Her breathing became frantic. She scrambled backward. The restraints still binding her arms. Please. Her voice cracked. Bellows, I had no idea. One step. Bellows moved closer. I didn't know you were alive. Another step. I didn't know this mission belonged to you. Another. The sludge beneath his robes shifted. Moved. Crawled. Kikimora could hear it. Wet. Unnatural. Wrong. I swear it'll never happen again. Closer. Never. Closer. I'll help Golden Guard. Closer. I'll serve him. Closer. Please. Closer. Please. Closer. Please. Tears ran freely now. Please don't kill me. Bellows finally stopped. Towering over her. Forcing her to look upward. The shadows no longer hid him completely. The elegant image of the Emperor remained. But beneath it, she could see the monster. Black sludge. Cracked flesh. Blue eyes burning from beneath a golden mask. Something ancient. Something hateful. Something wearing the shape of a man. Kikimora couldn't stop shaking. Then Bellows spoke. And his voice sounded different. Deeper. Rougher. A growl hidden beneath every word. I'm not going to hurt you. Kikimora blinked. Hope surged. Then immediately died. Bellows leaned down slightly. Those glowing blue eyes locking onto hers. But there will be consequences, Kikimora. He spoke the words slowly. Carefully. Like a promise. Kikimora began crying. Bellows simply watched. And before the nature of those consequences could be revealed, the scene faded. Returning elsewhere. Returning to Naruto. By the time Naruto finally reached Hexside, the night had fully settled over the boiling isles. The ride back had been long. Long enough for his exhaustion to settle into his bones. Long enough for the adrenaline from the day to finally disappear. Long enough for him to realize just how much he wanted a bed. Or a floor. Or a branch. Honestly, anything he could sleep on. The giant hand beast had proven surprisingly easy to control with the whistle Golden Guard left behind. After returning the recovered nest to where it belonged and finding a secluded stretch of forest to hide the beast, Naruto had finally begun the journey home. Now he stood before the owl house. Tired. Dirty. And more than a little annoyed at the entire day. The house itself was quiet, even slept. The demon house had curled himself around the front door, snoring softly to himself as moonlight washed across the yard. Naruto quietly slipped past him. Opened the door. And entered. The owl house creaked around him. Warm. Safe. Home. Naruto immediately felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. Not enough, but some. The silence made the exhaustion worse. Every step felt heavier than the last as he slowly climbed toward the second floor. His eyes were half closed. His body practically running on instinct. At this point he was ready to find the nearest corner and collapse. Then he stopped. Luza's door was open slightly. And standing outside it were Ida and King. Both looked surprised to see him. "Where have you been, Kit?" Ida asked. Then her eyes narrowed. And why do you look like you got hit by 10 slither beasts? Naruto looked up slightly, then down at himself. His clothes were torn, his jacket was filthy. Leaves were still stuck in his hair. He considered explaining, then immediately decided that sounded like too much effort. I'm just very tired. King stared. Tired is a light way of putting it. Naruto deadpanned. King pointed dramatically. You look like somebody threw you through a forest. Naruto blinked. That was actually surprisingly close. Before King could continue, Naruto remembered something. His attention shifted toward Luz's room. Is Luz alright? His voice softened slightly. Is she still upset about Palisman Day? Ida exchanged a look with King. Then smirked. I wouldn't say upset. She leaned against the wall. I'd say she just needs some time. A pause. That and Palistrom would. Naruto raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Ida's grin widened immediately. The look never meant anything good. I got her some Palistrom wood. For her own palisman. Naruto blinked. How did you? We stole some, King practically shouted the answer proudly. Naruto slowly looked toward him, then toward Ida. Of course they did. He wasn't even surprised. His attention drifted back toward Luz's door. So is she in there carving it right now? Ida's grin softened. Just slightly. Not exactly. Naruto looked at her. Ida shrugged. She said she wanted to wait. That surprised him. Ida continued. Apparently talking with you made her realize she didn't want to rush something this important. Naruto blinked, then smiled. Small, barely noticeable, but genuine. Before he could dwell on it further, Ida suddenly snapped her fingers. Oh right. Naruto immediately became suspicious. Ida looked entirely too pleased. I also have a surprise for you. His eyes narrowed. What kind of surprise? Ida reached behind her torn dress, then tossed something. Naruto barely caught it. His reflexes moved before his brain did. He looked down, then froze. Blue wood, smooth, polished. Palistrom wood. Naruto stared. This, his voice trailed off. Ida folded her arms. Yep. Naruto looked back at her. For your own palisman kit. For a moment he genuinely didn't know what to say. The wood felt light in his hands, important, meaningful. Like it represented something bigger than itself. Which only made him more confused. Ida tilted her head. You don't seem very excited. Naruto looked down at it again. He paused, trying to find the words. I never expected I'd carve a palisman. His thumb brushed across the smooth surface. It always felt like a witch thing. Ida immediately shook her head. Nope. Naruto looked up. Ida's expression had softened. The teasing gone. Replaced by something warmer. Kit, her voice lowered. Having a palisman is more than just a witch thing. She chuckled. Besides, her grin returned slightly. By magic standards you're absolutely a witch. Naruto immediately frowned. I am not. You absolutely are. Naruto groaned, too tired to go into a back and forth. Ida pointed dramatically. I still want tattoos like yours, by the way. Naruto deadpanned. The answer is still no. King laughed somewhere down the hallway. Ida rolled her eyes. Then looked back at him. And softened again. The main thing is. She gestured toward the wood. It's a gift. Naruto blinked. Ida continued. You never ask for anything. Her voice became quieter. You rarely accept anything either. The words hit harder than she probably intended. And as your guardian, a smile appeared, small, proud. I think it's about time you get off your high horse and let me give you something special. Naruto felt his chest tighten slightly. Not painfully. Just enough. Ida continued. Things are getting worse out there. Her expression turned serious. Luz is working herself to the bone trying to find a way home. She glanced toward the bedroom. We need to support her. Then looked back at him. And I can't think of a better way than helping my son carve his own palisman. Naruto looked away immediately. Mostly because hearing her say it out loud still affected him. More than he liked. More than he admitted. Ida smiled knowingly. Then continued. I think it's time you got one anyway. She poked his shoulder. You're getting ridiculously powerful. Naruto snorted. Ridiculously? Annoyingly, Ida said, smirk deepening. Naruto chuckled, then Ida folded her arms. So. Her smile returned. What do you say? Naruto didn't answer immediately. Instead he looked through the crack in Luz's doorway. The room was dark. Quiet. Peaceful. Luz slept beneath her blanket. Completely unaware of everything that had happened that day. For once there was no stress on her face. No uncertainty. No worry. Just peace. Naruto watched her for a moment. Then looked down at the palistrum wood. His fingers tightened around it. And the thoughts he'd been trying to avoid returned. The kiss. The decision he'd already made. One step back. That was all. One step. Let them be happy. Protect them. Support them. Even if it hurt. Even if it was difficult. His gaze lingered on the wood. Maybe this was part of that. Another way to move forward. Another thing to focus on. Another way to protect the people he cared about. A partner. A responsibility. Something of his own. Naruto finally smiled. Small. Tired. But real. Yeah. He looked back toward Ida. I think I'll wait too. Ida gave a confused look, while Naruto kept his small smile. I honestly can't think of what I want to carve, Naruto explained before Ida asked. But I do know I need to get stronger. And I will get stronger. And when I'm ready I'll start carving, and you will be the first person I tell. Ida's grin immediately returned in full force. Good. She wrapped an arm around his shoulders. Then immediately started dragging him toward the stairs. Tomorrow we're discussing carving ideas. Naruto groaned. King laughed. And for the first time all day, things felt simple. The palistrum would remain tucked safely in Naruto's hands as they disappeared down the hallway. And somewhere behind them, Luz slept peacefully. Unaware that two future palismen had just entered the owl house. A few days after receiving his piece of palistrum wood, Naruto found himself standing in a calm place. Training Ground 7. The clearing sat beneath a bright blue sky, surrounded by tall trees whose leaves swayed gently in the wind. 3 wooden training posts stood near the center of the field, weathered from years of use. Naruto landed lightly on the grass in his human form and looked around. Nobody, not a single person. He waited. And waited. Then frowned. Tsunade said he'd be here, his eyes narrowed slightly. Maybe the guy was lost, maybe he forgot. Maybe he was somehow lazier than Naruto. That last thought almost made Naruto chuckle. Almost. Then a slick, calm voice spoke directly behind him. You're just early. Naruto reacted instantly. His body spun, a seal slot flashed across his arm. His cleaver appeared in his hand, the blade stopped inches from a silver-haired man's face. The stranger didn't even flinch. Instead, one visible eye curved into what looked suspiciously like amusement. "Wow," he said lazily. "You reacted a lot worse than I expected." Naruto narrowed his eyes, carefully studying him. Silver hair, mask covering the lower half of his face, leaf headband tilted over one eye. And a relaxed posture. Far too relaxed. Naruto lowered the cleaver. "You snuck up on me. Most people can't do that." The weapon vanished back into a seal slot. "You Kakashi?" The man nodded. "That's me," then he rubbed the back of his head. "And I'm not that late." Naruto stared. Kakashi continued. "Usually I try to arrive as late as possible." A pause. 3 hours is a pretty good record. Naruto blinked. 3 hours? He couldn't imagine waiting that long. He would have fallen asleep. Or wandered off. Or both. Fortunately Kakashi continued before Naruto could question the sanity of anyone willing to wait that long. "Tsunade specifically told me not to do that for this assignment." That somehow sounded less reassuring. Kakashi shoved his hands into his pockets, then looked Naruto up and down. "So," his tone shifted slightly. "What exactly is your problem, kid?" Naruto opened his mouth. Then paused. There were a lot of possible answers to that question. But he decided to stick with the recent training problem. He and Tsunade had made a deal. Kakashi was supposed to help him get stronger. Naruto folded his arms. "First things first," he pointed at himself. "I have more than one." Kakashi gave a small shrug. "Most people do." Naruto ignored that. "You see, I use seals to absorb materials and he stopped himself. "Jutsu. No need to mention magic, witches, or spells. It was simpler to just say jutsu. I'm trying to integrate that into my fighting style." He raised one arm slightly. Eyes focused on his own arm. "But I'm also having trouble keeping track of what I've absorbed and how much is left." He pointed toward the markings on his arms. "I need to figure out a way to always have something useful in these slots." Kakashi didn't answer. Naruto frowned. The man seemed completely distracted. His visible eye lazily drifting around the clearing. Looking at trees, the sky, the training posts. Everything except Naruto. Naruto immediately questioned Tsunade's judgment. This was the guy she picked? Really? Before Naruto could decide whether to be annoyed, Kakashi finally looked directly at him. And when he spoke, it became obvious he had been listening the entire time. "Your first problem will be difficult," his tone remained casual. "Creating an entirely new fighting style around a custom sealing system isn't something you solve overnight." Naruto nodded slowly, that sounded reasonable. Then Kakashi continued. "As for the second problem." He tilted his head. "Why don't you just fill empty slots with whatever is around you?" Naruto blinked. "What?" Kakashi pointed toward the ground. "Rocks." Then toward a nearby tree. "Wood." Then toward a small puddle near the edge of the clearing. "Water." "If your seals can store materials, then store materials." Naruto stared. Kakashi continued as though the answer was obvious. "Send them out the same way you'd release a jutsu. Use them as ammunition. Tools. Distractions. Whatever works." Naruto opened his mouth. Then closed it. Then opened it again. Because somehow, he had never considered doing that. Not once. Kakashi studied him for a second. Then nodded. "Thought so." Naruto felt oddly called out. Kakashi glanced over him again. Then added casually. "Oh. I noticed another problem." Naruto immediately became suspicious. "What problem?" Kakashi pointed at Naruto's outfit. The sleeveless jacket. Naruto looked down. What about it? It's clearly designed so your seals stay exposed. Kakashi's eye shifted toward the torn edges. And it's falling apart. Naruto looked away. The jacket had definitely seen better days. Kakashi reached into a pouch, then pulled out a folded bundle of clothing. He tossed it over. Naruto caught it. The fabric unfolded slightly. Dark colors. Long sleeves and pants, both with many zippers. Practical. Less orange, a lot more black. Naruto stared, then looked back at Kakashi. You brought me clothes? Kakashi shrugged. You're trying to build a fighting style around hidden seals, he pointed at Naruto's exposed arms. Maybe don't always advertise where they are, until you need to use them. Naruto looked back down at the outfit. Then back at Kakashi, then back at the outfit. A strange realization settled over him. Tsunade hadn't been joking. This guy actually knew what he was doing. More importantly, everything Kakashi had suggested seemed painfully obvious now that someone else had said it aloud. Naruto mentally took back every negative thought he'd had in the last 5 minutes. Well, most of them. Kakashi was still weird. But there was no doubt anymore. This guy could help him get stronger. The scene shifted to the owl house. Night had settled over the boiling aisles. Most of the house was quiet now, save for the occasional groan of old wood and the distant sounds of insects outside. Inside her room, Ida sat at her desk. A small checklist rested beneath her hand. The owl lady squinted at it. Luz needs a new coat, she scribbled something beside it. King needs to be checked for fleas, another mark. Naruto and Hooty need to be cleaned. Ida paused, her quill hovered over the paper. Am I missing anything? Silence answered her. Ida leaned back in her chair and rubbed at one eye. The room was cluttered in the familiar way only her room could be. Half-finished projects. Random treasures. Junk that probably should have been thrown away years ago, and her own personal witch-sized owl nest. Home. Her gaze drifted toward the mirror sitting on the corner of the desk. For a moment she only saw her reflection. Wild gray hair. Tired heterochromatic eyes. The same old owl lady, but different. Then she noticed the photograph tucked into the frame. A picture from Grom, one Luz had insisted on taking. Ida reached over and picked it up. The image showed the 4 of them squeezed together. Luz smiling brightly, King trying far too hard to look intimidating, Naruto looking mildly annoyed about being included in the picture at all. And Ida herself. Actually smiling. A real smile. Not one of her usual smug grins. Not one of her fake confident smiles. A real one. The kind she rarely let people see. A small laugh escaped her. Oh, you've changed, owl lady, she shook her head. Gone from blasting coven guards in the face with ease to figuring out how to do basic chores. The smile remained. Smaller now. Softer. It's worth it. She meant that. Every word. The smile faded slightly anyway. Because 2 things could be true at the same time. It was worth it, and she missed it. She missed magic, her magic. Not glyphs, not the magic she failed to understand. The kind that used to flow through her without thought. The kind she could shape with a flick of her wrist. The kind she'd spent decades mastering. Luz had tried teaching her glyphs. And Ida had tried. Titan knew she'd tried. But they never felt like her. She could barely memorize the glyphs, let alone use them like Luz. Her eyes drifted back toward the photograph. King was growing up. He talked about finding his father now, about adventures of his own. About figuring out who he was. Luz spent nearly every waking hour searching for a way home, studying, researching, planning. Trying to solve problems no kid should have to solve. And Naruto. Ida's expression softened. Naruto was still training. Still getting stronger. Still carrying responsibilities that should have never been his to begin with. Always preparing. Always protecting. Always watching. A quiet sigh escaped her. There had been a time when she was the one protecting everyone. The one who stepped in when things became dangerous. The one with a plan. The one with the power. The one who always had an answer. Now, King was finding his own path. Luz was becoming a witch in her own right. And Naruto. Naruto was getting strong enough that sometimes Ida wasn't entirely sure he needed protecting anymore. The thought hurt more than she expected. Not because she wanted them weak. Not because she wanted them dependent. Because it meant they were growing. And growth meant change. Her fingers tightened slightly around the photograph. She couldn't protect them anymore. At least not how she used to. The room fell silent again. A long silence. Then Ida looked down at the photo once more. At Luz. At King. At Naruto. At herself. And despite everything. Despite the doubt. Despite the worry. The smile returned. Still worth it. This time the words were quieter. Almost like she was reassuring herself. Ida carefully placed the photograph back beside the mirror. Then pushed herself out of the chair. Her joints popped immediately. Okay. She stretched, cracked her neck, rolled her shoulders. But a grin slowly spread across her face. A distraction couldn't hurt. Ida waited until the owl house had gone completely quiet. Then she cracked open her bedroom door. Slowly, carefully. She peeked down one hallway. Nothing. Peeked down the other. Still nothing. Good. The last thing she needed was King asking where she was going or Luz trying to come along. Naruto would have somehow known she was sneaking out before she even touched the doorknob. Which was honestly annoying. The kid had gotten entirely too good at noticing things. Ida slipped into the hallway. Moving with surprising stealth for someone who usually solved problems by kicking them. The old floorboards creaked beneath her feet. She froze, waited. No doors opened, no questions came. Satisfied, she continued. Down the stairs. Out the front door. Past a sleeping Hootie. And into the night. The boiling aisle stretched beneath a moonlit sky. The cool air felt nice, freedom always did. A short while later, Ida arrived in Bonesboro. She moved through side streets and alleyways. Taking routes she knew weren't being watched. Past abandoned buildings, past empty market stalls. Past places most people never bothered looking. Eventually she stopped in front of an ordinary tent. It didn't look like much. That was the point. Anyone passing by would assume it belonged to a traveling merchant. Or someone homeless, or both. Ida pushed aside the entrance flap and stepped inside. Darkness immediately swallowed her. The tent was completely black. Silent. Then a familiar voice emerged from somewhere inside. Were you followed? Ida smirked. You know me, Rain. I'm pretty slippery when I want to be. A soft sigh answered her. A moment later lights flickered to life. The darkness disappeared. And Ida found herself looking directly at an old friend. Rain Whispers sat across from her. The newest head witch of the Bard Coven. And apparently one of the worst secret revolutionaries she'd ever met. The tent itself was surprisingly comfortable. Blankets covered the floor, pillows were piled into corners. Small lanterns provided warm lighting. A planning table sat in the center surrounded by chairs and scattered notes. Technically it was supposed to be a hidden resistance headquarters, in practice it looked more like a clubhouse. Ida approved. Rain did not look nearly as amused. Their expression tightened slightly. "I'm serious, Ida." They folded their arms. The bards against the throne cannot be discovered. The Golden Guard is already tightening his control over the Isles. Their eyes narrowed. And there's no telling what he or the other coven heads would do if they found out I was leading a revolution. Ida immediately rolled her eyes. "You worry too much." She dropped into an empty chair. I covered my tracks. Rain stared, Ida stared back. Eventually Rain sighed. Then a small smile appeared. "That's good at least." Ida grinned victoriously. As usual. Then her attention shifted toward the rest of the room. 3 younger faces looked back at her. Amber lounged against a pile of pillows. The bat-like demon waved enthusiastically. Katya sat beside the planning table, notebook already open. Meanwhile Derwin adjusted his glasses while offering a polite nod. Rain's students, and the other members of the rebellion. Ida pointed at them. "How are you 3? Her grin widened. "I hope Rain hasn't been babying you all." Amber laughed, Katya snorted, Derwin nearly choked. Meanwhile Rain looked embarrassed. "Ida." "What?" The younger rebels laughed harder. Rain looked away in a way that made them seem younger than they were. Some things never changed. The group settled down after a few moments. And Ida found herself smiling despite everything. Because this was nice. Dangerous. Illegal. Definitely stupid. But nice. The Bats weren't some massive organization, they weren't an army. They weren't even particularly well equipped. Just a handful of people trying to help. Helping wild witches, helping people avoid forced coven recruitment. Helping anyone caught in whatever scheme the Golden Guard was currently preparing. Ida had joined almost immediately after meeting them, mainly because of her past with Rain. She still remembered that first mission. A rescue gone wrong, Q near arrest. And Rain attempting to deliver an inspiring speech while visibly dying from stage fright. Some things truly never changed. But despite that, the rebellion was growing. Slowly. Carefully. One witch at a time. Eventually Ida stood and pulled several folded maps from her hair. The others immediately gathered around the planning table. Business mode. Finally. Ida spread the maps across the wood. "Let's get started." The room grew serious. Rain stepped forward. Their expression shifted completely. The playful warmth vanished, replacing itself with focus. "As we've already determined," Rain began, "the Golden Guard wants every wild witch placed into a coven before the Day of Unity." Derwin frowned. "He's trying to collect as much magic as possible. We just don't know why." Nobody did. That uncertainty was becoming increasingly concerning. Rain nodded. "Without more information, we continue doing what we've been doing." They pointed toward the map. 3 different locations had been marked. Each circled. Each crossed. Each representing a future transport route. "We help witches escape before they're brought to the Emperor's castle. The next transfers take place here." A finger tapped the first location. "Here. A second. And here. A third." Katya immediately looked concerned. At the same time, her eyes widened. "How are we supposed to pull that off?" A grin slowly spread across Ida's face. The kind of grin that usually meant property damage. She leaned against the table. "With one of Mama's signature plans, of course." Amber immediately pointed. "You're not our mom." Ida gasped dramatically. Later that night, Ida's plan went into motion. Bonesborough had gone quiet. Most citizens were asleep. Most. In the shadows of the city, several prison carts rolled through narrow back alleys toward the emperor's castle. Each cart carried witches that had refused coven recruitment. Each was guarded. And each was about to become a problem. The bats split into 3 teams. Ida and Derwin took the first route. Amber and Katya took the second. Rain handled the third alone. Every cart followed a similar pattern. 2 coven scouts, 1 guard captain. Simple. Predictable. Which made them vulnerable. On the first route, music echoed softly through the alley. A strange melody. Beautiful. Distracting. The scouts immediately looked toward the source. One stepped away from the cart. Then the second. Neither noticed Derwin dropping silently from above. The guard captain barely had time to turn before Derwin struck. The captain collapsed. The scouts followed moments later. A similar scene played out across the city. Amber's barred magic filled an alley with footsteps and flashing lights. The scouts rushed toward the distraction. Katya moved in. Quick. Efficient. Silent. Another cart secured. Rain's route was different. Because Rain didn't need a partner. A soft note echoed through the darkness, then another. Golden magic spread through the street like ripples across water. The sound wrapped around the guards. Around the cart. Around the entire area. Controlling the environment through sound. The scouts froze, sound waves forcing their own clothes to attack them. The guard captain tried to cast a spell. The music redirected it harmlessly into a nearby wall. A second later all 3 guards collapsed together. Rain lowered their violin. Mission complete. By the time the moon reached its highest point, every cart had been intercepted. Every prisoner had been freed. And every witch had been quietly escorted beyond the city limits. Far away from Emperor's castle. Far away from forced recruitment. Far away from the Golden Guard's reach. Not safe. Not completely. But safer. And for tonight, that was enough. The sun was beginning to rise when they returned to the tent. Bat-shaped masks came off, tossed aside tiredly. Everyone looked exhausted. Everyone except Amber. I can't believe it's already morning, Ida collapsed onto a pile of cushions. Amber immediately threw both hands into the air. I'm not tired yet. Katya stared. Amber. Amber grinned. What? You've gotta calm down. The entire room laughed. Even Rain. The tension from the mission slowly faded. The atmosphere returned to something closer to a gathering of friends than a rebellion. Rain settled onto one of the floor cushions. Ida dropped beside them. For a few moments neither spoke. Then Ida nudged them lightly. Rainstorm. Rain immediately chuckled. I haven't heard that in a minute. Ida smirked. That's because you've gotten all important. Rain rolled their eyes. Ida ignored it. You've gotten strong. She leaned back. Really strong. Her grin softened. But how exactly did you become head witch of the Barred Coven? Rain blinked. Ida continued. You used to get nervous ordering food. Amber snorted. Katya immediately looked interested. Derwin adjusted his glasses. Rain groaned. Ida. No, seriously, Ida pointed. You made a rebellion. You became a coven head. You somehow convinced people to follow you. She crossed her arms. A few weeks ago I couldn't imagine you rebelling against anything. A pause. Not with your stage fright. Rain was quiet. Thinking. Then they smiled. A soft one. A genuine one. It was because of you. Ida froze. Immediately. Completely. What? Rain's smile widened slightly. And Ida felt her face heat up. Fast. Very fast. Years ago. A hill stretched across a field of wild flowers. The sky was painted orange by the setting sun. Young Ida sat in the grass holding a citern beside young Rain. The two close enough that neither seemed to notice. Or maybe they did. Ida certainly did. Rain. Rain looked up. I know why you're really here. Rain immediately looked away. I have no idea what you're talking about. Ida laughed. The lie was terrible. She lazily balanced a citern across her lap. Sure. Totally believable. Rain crossed their arms. Who cares about a stupid performance? They looked out across the meadow. This is more fun. Whatever you say, Ida's grin grew. Rain reached over and adjusted the placement of her fingers on the citern. See? You'd be a mess without me. The moment they realized what they'd said, they immediately looked away. Flustered. Bright red. Ida hid her smile. Barely. That song you showed me. Rain cleared their throat. Trying desperately to recover. What about it? Ida's fingers moved across the strings. Music drifted through the meadow. Beautiful. Gentle. Bard magic flowed through the notes. Flowers glowed softly. Grass swayed. Even Ida's wild hair seemed to move with the melody. You called it Rain's Rhapsody. Rain immediately became embarrassed again. Ida laughed. Then continued playing. The song growing stronger. Brighter. More alive. You can't run from your fears forever. Rainstorm. Rain blinked. What? Ida pointed toward them with a grin. You gotta get the jump on them. She strummed another note. Give Em a whack right in the face. Rain stared. Completely confused. Ida laughed harder. The memory faded. The tent returned. Rain looked down at their hands. It took me a while to understand what you meant. Their voice became quieter. When I started teaching in the Bard Coven, I learned how recruitment really worked. The room became silent. The Emperor prioritized results. Their expression hardened. Anyone who refused to fall in line disappeared. Amber looked away. Katya frowned. Derwin's jaw tightened. Rain continued. Well, a small smile appeared. I wasn't going to stand for that. They straightened slightly. So I moved up the ranks. I found people who wanted change. People willing to help. Their eyes drifted toward the others. People like them. Then they drifted towards Ida. And eventually we got here. Silence followed. Then Ida smirked. I still can't believe you named the group Bats. Rain immediately looked embarrassed. I am not having this conversation again. You named a rebellion after an animal, she teased. It stands for something, Rain argued softly. Ida pointed dramatically. That's an excuse. Amber was already laughing, Katya joined her. Derwin gave up pretending to be serious. Rain covered their face. Eventually the room settled. Rain glanced toward Ida. What about you? Ida immediately became suspicious. What about me? Do you still know any bard spells? Ida looked away. Immediately. You remember the curse. Nowadays it messes with my magic. Rain hummed, smiling softly before drawing a golden spell circle in the air. A citern materialized, falling right into Ida's hands. Ida stared, Rain smirked. How'd you become the owl lady with your stage fright? Ida blushed, hard. Then sighed. All right, she stood. You asked for this. The room grew quiet. Ida placed her fingers against the strings. And played. The same song. The same melody. The same rhapsody. From years ago. Still memorized. Still beautiful. The music flowed through the tent, magic followed. Maps floated upward. Lanterns drifted gently through the air. Blankets and pillows lifted from the floor. Everything moved with the rhythm. The younger rebels stared in amazement. Then something changed. Black corrosion spread across the floating objects. Paper darkened. Wood cracked. Fabric withered. The magic flickered. Beautiful one moment. Decaying the next. Rain's smile vanished. Their eyes widened. Even their earring briefly blackened before recovering. Ida eventually stopped playing. The room settled. Everything fell back into place. A moment of silence followed. Then Ida laughed. Just as expected, she spun the instrument once. The curse is still messing with my magic. Her smile softened. Though honestly, she glanced at the floating papers. I didn't think I could still pull off that spell. The room remained quiet. Ida looked at the damaged maps. Then chuckled. Though with all the flickering, she placed the cittern down. It sounded more like Ida's requiem. Ida handed the instrument back. Then stood. I'll leave the professional musicians to it. She stretched. Moved toward the tent entrance. And waved without turning around. Call me if you need me. By Mama Ida, Amber shouted. By the time Ida disappeared, the room was quiet again. Rain's smile faded. Their eyes drifted downward. Toward one of the maps Ida's magic had touched. The blackened edges. The strange corruption. The lingering traces of her curse. Slowly. Thoughtfully. Rain picked it up. Eyes slightly scanning it. By the time Ida made her way back toward the owl house, the sun had begun creeping over the horizon. The sky had shifted from deep soft orange to its usual purple. A small smile stayed on Ida's face as she pushed open the front door. Then immediately vanished. The living room looked like a disaster zone. Demonic cameras were everywhere. On tables. On shelves. Hanging from walls. Balanced on stacks of books. One appeared to be duct taped to the door. Every single one pointed toward the center of the room. Toward King. Meanwhile, Luz sprinted between cameras with alarming efficiency. Adjusting angles. Checking recordings. Moving equipment. Somehow managing 3 things at once. Naruto sat quietly in a corner in his fox form. Watching the chaos unfold. He looked entirely too comfortable. Ida blinked, then pointed dramatically, "What is going on in here?" Luz immediately looked up. "Oh." A grin spread across her face, "Morning, Ida." She glanced around. Then winced. "Sorry about the mess." "The mess is fine," Ida said before gesturing at the cameras. "It's the camera army I'm worried about." She looked between the 3 of them. "What are you doing?" Luz exchanged a glance with King. Then rubbed the back of her neck. "Well, ever since we went to King's castle, we really haven't had time to keep looking for his dad." King immediately jumped into the conversation. Excitement replacing whatever exhaustion he should have been feeling. "So I came up with a plan." Ida immediately became suspicious. King pointed dramatically. The way he always did before announcing something ridiculous. "We make a video message." Ida nodded slowly. Then King continued. "And then we air it on every crystal ball in the boiling isles." His arms spread wide. "If my dad is out there, there's no way he'll miss it." Ida paused. Actually thinking about it. Then reluctantly admitted it wasn't a terrible idea. Okay, she folded her arms. How exactly are you planning to get it onto every crystal ball in the aisles? King immediately deflated. His confidence dropped several levels. We haven't gotten that far. A pause. Then he pointed accusingly toward Naruto. And Naruto isn't helping. Naruto stretched lazily. One tail reached over and ruffled King's skull. I told you. I'm not good with technology. He paused. Especially crystal balls. Luz immediately laughed. I can confirm that. She pointed toward Naruto. He still needs me to use the library crystal balls for him. Naruto looked away. Subtly. Very subtly. But Luz noticed. One eyebrow rose. Ida laughed anyway. The image was too funny not to. Still, as the laughter faded, Ida found herself looking around the room, at the cameras, at Luz, at King, at Naruto. They'd done all of this themselves. The planning, the setup, the idea, the execution. They didn't need her help, not really. The thought wasn't painful, not exactly, just strange, because when had that happened? When had they gotten so capable? King looked up at her. We could use some help continuing. His excitement returned, and there's something I wanted to tell you too. Ida crouched slightly, patting the top of his skull. A small smile found its way onto her face. You guys came this far. Her voice stayed light. I'm sure you'll be fine without me. King frowned. Ida, if you need me, just give a shout. Before he could continue, Ida stood and headed toward the stairs. The conversation ended before it could become one. Behind her, Luz looked slightly concerned. Naruto watched her go quietly. King looked confused. None of them stopped her. A few minutes later Ida sat alone in her room. The sounds of the living room drifted faintly through the floor. Voices, movement, laughter, life. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. They were growing up. That was a good thing, a wonderful thing. So why did it feel so strange? They needed her, didn't they? The question felt selfish, and yet it stayed, because if she wasn't protecting them, if she wasn't teaching them, if she wasn't the wise old owl lady anymore, then what exactly was her place? Ida frowned. She didn't like that question, mostly because she didn't have an answer. A knock interrupted her thoughts. She blinked, then turned toward the door. Ida? Naruto's voice, calm, familiar. You okay? Ida immediately straightened, her expression softened. Even though he couldn't see it, I'm fine. She forced a smile, just had some chores to finish up. Silence followed, then, okay. A pause, we're about to start recording. Another pause, just wanted to let you know. Something warm settled in Ida's chest, small, simple, but warm. Thanks, Kit. No answer came, only retreating footsteps. Naruto had already left. Ida stared at the door for several seconds afterward, not really sure how she felt. Part of her wanted to go downstairs, part of her didn't. Before she could decide, CAW, Ida jumped, then immediately groaned. A crow phone emerged from her hair, flapping, cawing loudly, demanding attention. Yeah. She grabbed it. What? The phone immediately settled. Ida pressed it to her ear. Hello? A familiar voice answered. Ida? She straightened immediately. Rain? The warmth from before vanished, replaced by focus, concern, something serious. We got a tip about another raid. Rain sounded tense. I know you're probably busy. Ida didn't hesitate, not even for a second. Her expression hardened instantly. The owl lady returning. No, she stood, already moving toward the door. It's fine. A pause, then, I'm on my way. The call ended, and just like that, Ida was moving again. The forest was quiet, too quiet. A narrow creek cut through the clearing below, its water moving lazily beneath a broken wooden bridge. One half remained attached to the path Ida and the others stood on. The other sat across the creek, separated by a gap that would have been annoying for most travelers and meaningless for witches. The bats stood together on the bridge, watching, waiting, listening. moonlight filtered through the trees overhead, turning the clearing silver. Rain slowly stepped forward, a small golden spell circle appeared beside their hand, their violin materialized. Without a word, they raised the bow and played a single sharp note. The sound rang through the clearing, not loud, not violent, but powerful. Magic surged outward with it. Glowing waves rippled through the forest, passing through trees, brush, and stone alike, searching, scanning, looking for signs of movement. The glow disappeared into the darkness, then nothing happened. For several long seconds, Rain's expression slowly tightened. This should be the spot. Their grip on the violin shifted slightly. Something isn't right. Ida immediately frowned. That was never a sentence she liked hearing, especially from Rain. Then everything went wrong. Amber yelped, Katia shouted, Derwin barely managed a curse before all three suddenly sank waist-deep into thick purple abomination sludge. The goop exploded upward from the ground beneath them, binding their legs, pinning their arms, holding them completely still. What? Amber. Ida. Ida reacted instantly. She grabbed Rain's arm. Both vanished into the forest. Just as movement appeared on the opposite side of the creek, the captured bats slid across the bridge in a wave of abomination sludge, pulled toward the far side like prisoners on a conveyor belt. The sludge gathered, twisted, rose upward, forming a tall humanoid figure, elegant, refined, annoyingly fashionable. Darius dusted imaginary dirt from his cloak, then sighed dramatically, looks like we missed a few. A second later something burst from the trees. Eberwolf landed beside him, claws digging into the bridge, eyes glowing with excitement. It wasn't a raid, it was a trap. Darius looked around, clearly unimpressed by the entire forest. This place is disgusting. He gestured lazily toward the captured rebels. Figure out which one's the turncloak so we can leave. Eberwolf immediately began sniffing them, literally. He crawled over Amber, then Katia, then Derwin, circling them like a hunting beast. Several uncomfortable seconds later he returned to Darius, and shook his head. Darius groaned, just my luck. With a snap of his fingers the abomination sludge surged upward. The three bats disappeared entirely, teleported away, gone. The clearing became silent. Darius folded his arms, then looked directly into the forest. I was scheduled for some me time today. His voice echoed through the trees, so hand yourselves over before things get nasty. Nothing answered. A long pause followed, then Darius visibly lost patience. I know they can hear me. Another pause. I know you can hear me. Still nothing. He pinched the bridge of his nose, then looked toward Eberwolf. Eber. The beast which looked up, help me out here. Eberwolf immediately drew an orange spell circle across his forehead. The magic flashed, his pupils widened, becoming sharp, predatory, animalistic. Two beams of light shot from his eyes and swept across the forest like searchlights. The beams crossed the muddy ground, then stopped, a trail of footprints, leading directly into the woods. Darius stared at them, then stared at the forest, then stared back at the footprints. I'm not going in there. Eberwolf immediately threw a handful of dirt at him. Darius dodged. Ack. He glared, what do you think you're doing? Eberwolf responded by climbing all over him, then sprinting into the trees. Darius sighed dramatically, you'll regret that, mutt. Then followed after him. The moment both disappeared, two figures materialized high above the clearing, hidden among the branches. A fading ghost glyph, like the one Lilith made at King's Castle, shimmered in Ida's hand. Rain was carrying her bridal style. Ida blinked, looked down, then realized she wasn't wearing her boots anymore. A grin immediately appeared. I am glad I remembered how to do that. The glyph disintegrated, the illusion vanished. Rain carefully lowered her onto a nearby branch, then both dropped into the mud below. The moment they landed, Rain's expression became serious, very serious. They waited several seconds, making sure Darius and Eberwolf were truly gone, then turned toward Ida. Ida. The humor disappeared from their voice. The Golden Guard's plans are far more dangerous than I let on. That got her attention. Rain continued, he's preparing something for the Day of Unity. A spell. A big one. They looked toward the direction Darius had gone, and he can't do it without every coven head. Ida's smirk faded, not entirely, but enough, if we can take out Darius and Eberwolf. The implication hung in the air, the spell couldn't happen, or at least it would become much harder. Ida cracked her knuckles, confidence immediately returning. Say no more, Rainstorm. A grin spread across her face. What's the plan? Rain hesitated, then raised a hand. A golden spell circle appeared, a sitter materialized. They offered it to her. Ida blinked, then took it, confused. Rain's eyes stayed fixed on the instrument. You said your curse interferes with magic. Slowly, a thoughtful look crossed their face, then they smiled, a dangerous smile, the kind Ida hadn't seen in years. I think we can make that work in our favor. The enchanted boots were surprisingly effective. Darius and Eber followed them unknowingly. The muddy footprints continued through the forest in an almost mocking trail, leading deeper and deeper into the trees, until they caught up with what was making the tracks. Looks like our traitor is a clever little songbird. The boots stopped, slowly turned around, and kicked a spray of mud directly into his face. Silence. Eberwolf immediately burst into laughter. Darius stood completely still. Mud dripped from his hair, his cloak, his nose. Something dangerous twitched beneath his eye. Oh. The ground exploded. Purple spikes of hardened abomination sludge erupted upward. The boots vanished instantly, reduced to scraps. Darius slowly wiped mud from his cheek. His smile was terrifying. All right. His eyes flashed green, then disappeared beneath black. Abomination sludge consumed his body, expanding, growing, transforming. Within seconds he stood nearly twice his normal size, a monstrous tank of living abomination matter. A massive cleaver formed in one hand. The blade gleamed darkly. No more playing around. Beside him Eberwolf growled, claws extended, talons sharpened. A huge ratworm beast burst from the earth beneath him. The coven head leapt onto its back. Together they charged through the forest, hunting, searching, looking for their prey. Hidden behind a massive tree, Ida and Rain waited, breathing quietly, listening. Ida turned slightly, then froze. She suddenly realized exactly how close she was standing, very close. Close enough to feel Rain's shoulder against hers. Close enough to feel their breathing. Her face immediately heated. She stepped back, fast. Rain looked equally embarrassed, for about half a second, then both remembered they were being hunted. Rain cleared their throat, summoned their violin. Ida grasped her cittern. The moment their instruments lift, the mood changed. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Then they began to play. The first notes of Rain's rhapsody drifted into the air, soft, beautiful, familiar. The song flowed naturally between them, each note creating room for the next, each strum blending perfectly with every pluck. The melody rose and fell like a conversation only they understood. The forest responded immediately. Flowers glowed, branches swayed, the air itself shimmered. Tiny motes of magical light appeared among the trees. The entire forest seemed to dance to the rhythm, for a moment. Everything felt beautiful. Then Ida's curse touched it. Black corruption bled from the edges of her magic, like ink spreading through water. The glowing lights darkened, the flowers began to wither, the corruption spread outward through every strand of barred magic woven into the forest. It moved silently, patiently, hungrily, and it kept growing. Darius noticed first. The leaves around him blackened, trees began to rot. The ground beneath his feet cracked, his abomination form hissed where the corruption touched it. The sludge began breaking down. Eberwolf growled in pain, black veins crawled across his claws. The ratworm mount stumbled, the forest itself seemed to be attacking them. Darius slammed his cleaver into a tree, the trunk immediately crumbled. What is this? The corruption continued spreading, eating away at everything, stopping their advance, slowing their search, hurting them, not enough to fully consume them, but enough to matter, enough to hurt, and eventually, to leave them out for the count. It's working. Ida smirked, never stopping her music. She could see the corruption spreading, see Darius struggling, see Eberwolf falling behind. It's working. Her grin widened. Keep playing. Rain's expression did not, because they could see something Ida wasn't noticing, the corruption crawling up both their legs, the bark around them and Ida blackening. The grass beneath dying. The curse wasn't stopping, it was spreading through everything, including the two of them. Ida. She didn't stop, Ida. Still playing, Rain's voice softened, we may not make it out ourselves. The words hit harder than any spell. Ida looked down, finally noticing the black rot, the corruption, the way it was slowly consuming them. For a brief moment, fear crossed her face, then she thought about Luz, King, Naruto, the Owl House, everything waiting for her at home, everything the day of unity threatened. Her expression hardened, not with bravery, with acceptance, the kind that hurt. Will it stop the Golden Guard? Rain hesitated. Then nodded. Ida closed her eyes, only for a moment. When they opened again, something inside her had broken, just slightly, like she had made a decision she couldn't bear to make. Then we play on. The music continued, stronger than before, the corruption spread faster, and something slipped free from Ida's hair, a photograph. Rain caught it, looked down, and froze. The picture showed Ida, Luz, King, Naruto, all smiling, all together, a family. Rain stared, then looked up. Ida. She kept playing. Ida, do you have kids? The citern screeched, one awful off-key note. Ida froze, completely caught off guard. The music faltered, her emotions finally caught up. All the doubts, all the fears, everything she'd been avoiding, they crashed into her at once. Her voice broke. She looked away. They're not all technically mine. Rain continued staring. It doesn't matter. Her grip tightened on the instrument. This is the only thing I can do now. The words hurt to say, to protect them. Her eyes watered, to save them one last time. A pause, then quietly, what else am I good for? She tried to keep playing, tried to push through, tried to sacrifice herself anyway. A golden spell circle flashed, the citern vanished. Ida immediately stumbled forward, the music stopped, the corruption slowed, then began receding. Ida. Rain knelt beside her. She couldn't even look at them, couldn't look at anyone. I don't know what you're running from. A small smile appeared on their face, but I vaguely remember a great witch saying something about punching fears in the face. Despite herself, Ida laughed, a tiny broken laugh. Rain extended a hand. What I'm trying to say. Their voice softened. You are worth more than what you're allowing yourself to believe. Ida looked up. They definitely need you. The smile became warmer, but not just for you to protect them. Silence. For the first time all day, Ida actually listened, really listened, to someone else, to herself, to what she'd been afraid of. Slowly, very slowly, the fear began loosening its grip. Rain held out their hand. We can find another way to stop the Golden Guard. Ida stared, then took it. Rain's smile widened. Unfortunately, that was when the forest exploded. Purple abomination sludge burst from the ground, wrapping around both of them instantly. What? Ida. The sludge yanked them backward, dragging them through the forest. Darius stepped from the trees, furious, covered in scratches, and absolutely done with this entire day. Found you, Songbird. The sludge tightened, pulling harder. Ida grabbed a nearby branch, wood splintered beneath her fingers, for one desperate moment. She managed to hold on, then she saw Rain, saw their hands slipping from hers, saw them being dragged away. No, the word came out broken, tearful, desperate. Rain, don't. Rain looked back, pain visible on their face, but they still smiled, softly, the same way they always had. Go. Their fingers slipped. You know I can't stand an audience. Then they let go. A violin appeared in their hand. Music exploded outward. In a sonic blast the abomination restraints shattered. Rain landed gracefully in the clearing, directly before two furious coven heads. Hello, Darius. They smiled. Eber. Darius pointed his cleaver, absolutely livid. Rain whispers. His eye twitched. You'll regret what you did to my cloak. Eberwolf muttered something beside him. Darius sighed. And your treachery. Rain only smirked, ready for a fight they couldn't win. Hidden behind the trees, Ida watched Rain stand alone, watched them buy her time, watched them make the same choice she had almost made. Tears filled her eyes, but this time, she listened. This time, she ran, back toward the Owl House, back toward her family, back toward the people who still needed her. even if she hadn't realized it yet. By the time Ida returned to the owl house, the sun was already beginning to sink. The walk back had given her plenty of time to think. Too much time, honestly. Rain's words still echoed in her head. They need you, but not just for you to protect them. The thought stayed with her all the way to the front door, so when she stepped inside, she was actually smiling, a small one, the genuine kind. Then the smile vanished immediately. The living room looked like a disaster zone. Broken cameras littered the floor. Some had toppled over, some had been stepped on. One appeared to have exploded, another was somehow lodged inside the wall. Ida blinked. What in the— Luz looked up first. Oh. Hey Ida. She smiled sheepishly. Sorry about the mess, again. Ida slowly looked around again, her eyes narrowed. What are you three doing now? Luz rubbed the back of her neck. Things got a little out of hand. A little? Naruto's fox ears flattened. King buried his face deeper into his knees. Luz pointed toward them. One of our recordings involved King asking Naruto to use his seals as homemade pyrotechnics. A pause. Luckily nothing burned down. Another pause, but King still processing the aftermath. Ida looked toward the couch. King sat curled into himself. Naruto sat beside him in fox form, one tail wrapped loosely around King's shoulders. The fox wasn't saying anything, just sitting there, being present, comforting him the only way Naruto knew how. Something about that hit Ida harder than expected. She smiled softly, then walked over. Hey, King. King didn't move. Did the video not do too well? King pulled his knees tighter, his voice cracked. It doesn't matter. Ida's smile faded slightly. King continued, all the recordings are gone. We couldn't even figure out how to get them onto every crystal ball in the aisles. His shoulders slumped. My dad's never gonna know I'm here. The room grew quiet. Luz looked guilty. Naruto's tail tightened slightly around King's shoulders. Ida simply watched him, then smiled, a real smile, the kind that always meant she had an idea. She reached into her hair, pulled out a scroll. The magical paper unfurled, expanded, then hardened into something resembling a glowing touchscreen. King blinked. Ida grinned. How about we shoot one last video? Several minutes later, the living room had been cleaned up enough to function, mostly. King stood in the middle of the room holding a script. Luz stood beside Ida. Naruto sat nearby in fox form, watching. King still looked uncertain. Ida. He glanced toward the scroll. Who's even gonna watch this? Ida smirked. No one watches crystal balls anymore. She tapped the screen. It's all about streaming. The device lit up, recording. King swallowed, then started talking. All right. He shifted nervously. Hi Dad. If you're out there watching this. His confidence slowly grew. I want to introduce myself. I like cheesy foods and conquering kingdoms. Naruto snorted. King ignored him. Though I haven't conquered any kingdoms of my own yet. But maybe you have. And we can compare notes. Luz giggled. King kept going. I'd love to meet you. We could do parent-kid stuff. Toss a ball. Burn some cookies. Catch me going on weird websites or something. Ida raised an eyebrow. King continued before anyone could question that. Also, I found a symbol in the tower I hatched in. Maybe you can teach me to read it. He smiled slightly. I live with my favorite human. Luz smiled, a lazy guard fox. Naruto deadpanned. And a cranky old witch. Hey. King grinned, but cranky or not. King's voice softened. She's the one who raised me. Ida's smile faltered, for just a moment, then King suddenly grinned, which is why I'm legally changing my name to King Clawthorn. He pulled a stack of papers seemingly out of nowhere and held them above his head triumphantly. Ida froze, completely. King pointed dramatically. Surprise, Ida. His grin widened. Now we're connected for life and there's nothing you can do about it. The room fell silent. Ida stared at the papers, then at King, then back at the papers. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. For once in her life, the owl lady seemed completely out of words. Luz immediately lit up. King, that's actually adorable. King puffed up proudly, I know. Ida laughed once, a short, surprised sound, then quickly looked away, trying very hard not to get emotional. Failing, King noticed instantly, ah, you're crying already. I'm not crying. You are. I'm not. You absolutely are. Ida pointed at him, don't ruin this moment for me. King looked entirely too pleased with himself, then his eyes shifted toward Naruto, unlike some people who still haven't made it official. Naruto blinked, what that's supposed to mean? You've lived here longer than me. King crossed his arms, and you haven't even thought about changing your name. Naruto shrugged, I've never really thought about it. Everyone paused, Naruto didn't notice. I already considered everyone here family. A small shrug, legal or not, I'm a clawthorn. Silence, this time it hit even harder. King looked surprised, Luz's smile softened, and Ida's eyes immediately watered. Naruto blinked, what? You two are impossible. Ida sniffled, King grinned, Luz smiled softly before stepping forward and handing Ida a pen, just so you can make it official. Ida looked down at the papers, that was it, the final straw. Ida laughed, then cried, then laughed while crying, which somehow made everything worse, or better, possibly both. King looked alarmed, Luz looked emotional, Naruto looked completely lost. Ida didn't care, because suddenly everything made sense. It didn't matter if she couldn't fight like she used to, it didn't matter if she couldn't solve every problem, it didn't matter if the kids were growing up. King chose her, Luz chose her, Naruto had chosen her years ago. All those fears she'd been carrying, all those doubts, they suddenly felt very small, so Ida did what came naturally, she pulled all three of them into a crushing hug. King squeaked, Luz laughed, Naruto immediately complained. Deep within the forest, the mood was considerably less wholesome. Rain sat bound in abomination sludge. Across from them sat Darius. Nearby Eberwolf watched the live stream on a crystal screen. The volume was far too loud. Darius pinched the bridge of his nose. Would you shut that off? Eberwolf ignored him. We're supposed to be tormenting Rain. Darius pointed at the screen, not me. Eberwolf immediately turned the volume higher. Darius stared at him, deadpan, then footsteps echoed through the clearing, everyone froze, the stream shut off instantly, silence fell, a massive automaton 2.0 especially made by Blight Industries emerged from the shadows. Standing in front of it, like a king arriving before his court, was the Golden Guard. The new white cloak flowed behind him. More gold, sharper designs, more authority. The mask was different too. The old one had been intimidating, this one looked slick, dangerous. On his other side stood Kikimora, silent, tense, unusually obedient. The atmosphere changed immediately, even Darius straightened, both coven heads bowed. Golden Guard. The Golden Guard stepped forward, I'm glad to see you've caught him. Darius nodded, yes. We found the leader of the primary rebellion. Just as you requested. Good. The Golden Guard's gaze shifted toward Rain. Rain visibly tensed, then forced a smirk. Here to kill me? The Golden Guard grabbed the front of Rain's bindings, and lifted them effortlessly into the air. The smirk faltered, his voice dropped, cold, sharp, no, the single word echoed through the clearing, you are still needed. His grip tightened, replacing a coven head would be inconvenient. Rain's confidence began to crack. The Golden Guard leaned closer, but for trying to interfere with the plans my uncle left behind. The mask hid his expression, his voice did not. I have something special in store for you. Rain's eyes widened, genuine worry. Genuine fear. With complete silence. Like they didn't know what was gonna happen, only the Golden Guard knew. That's it for today. I hope you liked the video. Please like and subscribe, and comment ideas if you can, and maybe you could share this with your friends, because you never know, they might like what ifs too. So without further ado, All Kage, out.